After generations of relentless effort, humanity finally brewed up true magic. No one planned it, it just had to happen. Then they hit the shocking idea. Magic could live in blood and that gift could be passed down. So the hunt began, how to hand that power to the next generation. Over time, strange magical power started surfacing in ordinary people. And because blood gets inherited, the creators sealed their masterpieces by making sure that magic lived on only through the bloodline. Yuscha isn't just any country, it's hailed as the nation of magic. There, the nobles fire up magic to shield everyone from invaders and monsters. Then they sit on top of society, rewarded with major status and serious privileges for doing it. In the glittering magical nobility of this kingdom, the house of Marquis Friendbride reigns above the rest, and little Hermes, still a baby, is next in line for the title. From the moment he was small, his magic burst out in insane amounts. Everyone instantly saw he was a prodigy. Long ago, the Friendbride family ruled as dukes, but when they couldn't produce heirs who could wield magic, their power crumbled fast. They got stripped down to mere marquises, and people started whispering that the line was doomed until every last hope pinned itself on Hermes. Act like this miracle was fated to bring the family back to greatness. 4 years later, Hermes practically rockets to his father, desperate to blurt out that. And the moment his magic lessons ended, the teacher praised him to the sky, saying he had the biggest potential of anyone his age, and his proud father immediately boasted that he'd become the greatest mage the family had ever seen. Hermes gets praised non-stop, and everyone's piling high hopes on him, while his father whispers dreams of him becoming as mighty as the legendary kings of old and their storied ancestors. His friends stare in admiration, his teachers can't wait to see how deep his hereditary magic really runs, and Hermes soaks it all in with iron confidence and pure determination. Chris, Hermes' brother, gets crushed every day. His father keeps comparing him to everyone else and tearing him down for not having the same magical talent. Everyone praises Hermes as the perfect example, and then Chris gets slammed as pathetic. Lineage magic, or hereditary magic, is the power that's handed down through blood, generation after generation. With Chris already feeling the heat, Hermes can't hold back. He beams at Katia, his childhood friend and the heir to yet another duchy. Hermes tells her lineage magic is locked to the nobility and dwarfs ordinary magic in power, but Katya shrugs it off and dives into play instead, while Hermes keeps chattering nonstop, all fired up about magic. Hermes spills his dream of becoming a powerful, heroic mage, right alongside the legendary heroes he's obsessed with. And when Katia sees how deeply he loves magic, she throws him encouragement, fully convinced he's going to make it. With this goal burning in his chest, Hermes keeps leveling up day after day, until he finally hits 7. During Hermes' magical evaluation, the examiner leans in and straight up announces that he can't feel a single trace of lineage magic in him. Something should have appeared by now, but then the truth hits like a thunderclap, leaving everyone reeling, and Hermes in particular, because he's suddenly forced to face the brutal reality. He never had the power everyone swore he would. The kingdom's evaluator takes one look at Hermes and flat out declares it. No magic at all, zero talent. The news hits his father like a punch in the gut because he can't stomach the idea that their heir failed, while everyone around them groans, insisting Hermes wasn't chosen by God. Then the truth gets laid out. Your inherited magic comes down to the purity of your bloodline, and that purity isn't earned by effort at all. It's picked by fate, no matter how worthy you are. Hermes' father lets out a furious cry, then crumples into despair when it hits him that every plan he made to claw back the Duke title through his son is completely doomed. Rage swells in him, so he snaps that Hermes is useless and launches a violent attack, while the boy stands there, stunned and suffering, completely ignored. After he assaults Hermes, his father snaps into action, locks him up tight, berates him like trash, and taunts him as worthless scum, practically demanding he be thrown out into the streets. He can't even stand breathing the same air as his own son, so Hermes left stunned and desperate, yelling for him over and over, but his pleas fall on deaf ears. Desperate, Ernie pleads to keep trying, swearing he'll work harder and do anything to become the mage his father always wanted. Then his father coldly shuts him down, calling him a defective product. And he said it plain. With no lineage magic, he'd never become the son he dreamed of, because in his eyes, Hermes was just a star's god who abandoned him, leaving him feeling unworthy. Hermes' father rips into the truth and declares he isn't some blessing from God. He's the spawn of a demon, and he'll only let him go if Hermes can pull off a miracle and master lineage magic. The truth he himself can't even believe. Then he storms out and slams the cell shut, locking Hermes in alone, right as his whole life flips upside down. Locked up and crushed inside, Hermes stares at the days he's lost and panics, because with no lineage magic, he's terrified he'll never break free. Logic, right when it felt like the whole world had shut the door, his brother Chris shows up at the cell door, grinning like he knows a secret, and Ernie's shock hits as he recognizes him on the spot. Chris bursts in to say he's here to teach his poor little brother magic, and then drops the bomb that he knows everything. Then he bursts in, giddy and loud, bragging that he's God's chosen, grinning so hard it's almost scary, before firing off his magic in a dramatic, thunderous show that completely leaves Hermes frozen. Chris lashes out at Hermes with his own magic, muttering that it might finally rouse his brother's dormant power, then grins like he's savoring every second of it. Hermes gets slammed into the wall, battered and hurt, while Chris glares at him with contempt and spits, pathetic. Chris spills the truth. He's not getting revenge at all. He's just punishing Hermes for blowing him off while the dad showers him with favoritism. Hurt by what happened, Hermes finally realizes he never once stopped to think about how his brother, Chris, must have felt. He'd been too busy soaking up praise and learning magic to notice Chris getting pushed aside, and now that guilt is crushing him. Chris straight up announces he'll take Hermes' spot, claiming the heir title and finally becoming the great mage he's always dreamed of. While Hermes sits there locked up in silence, crushed and humiliated, and Chris just cackles, turns around, and walks out. Right after that, a girl slips up to his cell and asks, "Are you okay?" Katja discovers Hermes mangled and locked up, and the moment she realizes her father and Chris did this, shock slams her right in the chest. Heartbroken she can't heal him with her magic, she clasps his hand and chokes out an apology, swearing that even with magic nobody deserves to be treated like this. Hermes snaps that he's defective, claims just being able to eat is enough, and then Katja cuts him off with a hard, no-nonsense interruption. She's like, "I believe in you." And then she lays it on thick. He wants magic more than anyone, he pushes himself harder than anyone, and there's no way a kid like him doesn't have lineage magic in his blood. Then she grabs his heart with her words, "I'm never letting you go, no matter what hits us." Kochi grabs Hermes by the moment and reassures him, promising he'll grow into a legendary mage, and that she'll have him back at her side again. Her words hit like fuel, and Hermes refuses to quit. He remembers he can break free if he masters lineage magic, then flashes a fresh smile and swears he'll keep trying, thanking Katja for lighting his hope back up. Katja spots that they've caught on, but before she slips out, she spits the truth. She can't stand the idea of seeing the people she loves locked up. With sheer determination, she vows to Hermes that he'll break free of there, and she swears it's an ironclad promise. Hermes smiles again, hope reigniting as the change finally kicks off. Even trapped in that nightmare place, Hermes spent his days going all in, obsessively hunting for new ways to use his magic. His burning will to break free, fueled by Katja's non-stop support, kept him going. Two things fueled his heart and locked him in, steady as he chased his quest. Even after 3 grueling years of trying, Hermes got absolutely nowhere. When he spots Katja again, excitement hits him hard, but then the truth blindsides him. She won't be coming back and her face is soaked in sadness. She apologizes and walks off, leaving Hermes utterly confused and shocked. Katja drops the bombshell that she's about to be forced into marriage with Aster, the second prince, the greatest living user of lineage magic and the top contender for the throne. She says being a duchy heir is an honor to her, so she won't refuse. Then Hermes jolts with questions, asking if she truly means to accept. Katja scrambles to stall the wedding for at least 6 months, but Chris storms in with guards and slams the door on that whole plan. Chris tells them that once she got engaged to Prince Aster, the Friendbreed family got rolled right back into the high nobility. And Hermes and Katja are stunned that he's so cold, yet so unshakably sure. Katja erupts in rage when she hears the prince won't even see Hermes. Meanwhile, Chris, swaggering with fresh pride, flashes that he's landed the role of Prince Aster's right-hand man because of his talent. He flat-out declares that the whole Friendbreed family serves the prince, and that keeping Hermes locked up is his own direct order, so this decision isn't getting reversed. Prince Astor sneers that the powerless have no place in his world, then orders Hermes' elimination with zero hesitation. Chris, obedient to the core, barks an order and has the guards snatch Hermes. Katja erupts in fury, trying to stop the cruelty, but they clamp down on her and hold her back. As they yank him away, Hermes shouts to Katja, and she snaps back that she'll bargain with the prince to get him saved. As Katja screams for Hermes with her whole heart, he stays locked in silence, lost in the brutal question of how he could ever win his father's love and God's favor. Because with the way he's been cast aside and broken, his heart is begging for even a shred of recognition, and he still can't figure out what he did to deserve this kind of hate. Hermes jolts awake in a grimy, crumbling wasteland, surrounded by miserable people who look like they've hit rock bottom. Confused, he stares at the world like it betrayed him, only to feel every suspicious look from the crowd creep in tighter, until fear and loneliness swallow him whole. Hermes gets cornered by a crew of men with shady grins, and they lean in asking, "So, are you alone?" Seeing the danger hit, he panics on the spot and bolts for his life, fear swallowing him whole. With terror crashing down on him, he spirals into thoughts of Katja and begs for a miracle, because right now he feels totally helpless. Hermes lunges to get away, but the men slam him down and grab hold of him. They mock him for strutting alone as a noble, then one sneers that he'll stay with them, while another grabs him and won't let go. Hermes thrashes and pleads to be freed, but he's boxed in and gets absolutely outmatched. The aggressors huddle up and argue over Hermes, sell him off or break him into slavery. But in the end they sneer, deciding he's so weak and useless that even a ransom would be a waste. Seething with hatred for the nobles, they charge in to beat him to a pulp, even insisting it's best to kill him. While Hermes, sprawled on the floor and bleeding, has to stare into the terrifying truth of human cruelty with zero power to fight back. With blood in his wounds and desperation in his throat, Hermes spirals into the thought that maybe every grind and every sacrifice meant nothing. Then one of the attackers closes in, knife raised and a cruel grin carved on his face. And suddenly it feels like his life could end right here, right now, even after everything he chased just to be seen. And in the middle of that panic, Hermes roars in his own mind, "I won't let it end like this." Right when Hermes is seconds away from getting stabbed, lightning slams down and blasts the attackers out of their tracks, cutting the violence short. A terrifyingly powerful woman steps into the background, strides in with unshakable confidence, and barks at them to stop. Injured and sprawled on the ground, Hermes stares in shock as the thugs, terrified, turn their eyes to her. She glares at the scene in disgust, snaps that she came home feeling good, then hits the brakes when she spots a bunch of adults hammering a child, and her rage spills out as she calls it disgusting and says they just ruined her whole day. Hermes stares at her, thrown off and completely baffled by her sudden, intimidating presence. With a razor-sharp, confident stare, she declares she's about to have the time of her life smashing those cowards. The thugs erupt in fury and can't believe what they just saw. Yelling at her to get out of the way, they slam the magic circles to life. She stands her ground, staring them down without a shred of fear. Then with one brutal burst of motion, she smashes every aggressor to the ground, sending them flying while she stays perfectly calm and poised in the middle of the wreckage. Hermes stares in stunned silence as she grins with sarcasm, saying just how terrifying the whole thing felt. Hermes stares in shock as the woman unleashes a storm of spells, fire, ice, and wind all at once. And his mind reels because in this world, one person is supposed to wield only a single type of lineage magic. Her spell's power annihilates everything around him, and the worst part hits as he realizes it's just ordinary magic. Her strength is wildly absurd. Hermes freezes in disbelief as the crowd instantly clocks her insane strength. She storms in with an intimidating aura and absurd magical power, so they call her the walking catastrophe. Her name is Rose, the feared witch of the skies. Rose seethed at being underestimated, mocked the men for taking so long to see who she really was, and snapped at them for calling ordinary magic weak. Then she grinned and swore she'd prove her true power with a special demonstration, like it was a gift. Rose snaps into a powerful chant, and a colossal magic circle blooms behind her as her steady, solemn words ring out. She's about to prove her power, the kind that crushes the line between heaven and earth, and the air itself surges with energy while the enemies stare, trembling in fear. Rose unleashes her deadly Lidsky elf lineage magic, blasting a brutal surge of light that swallows the whole area. Every enemy around her gets hit straight in the face, frozen, helpless, and seconds from reacting, but too late. The sheer power she unleashes screams one thing: she's on a completely different tier, an elite mage standing above the rest. Rose glances at the thugs sprawled on the ground and makes it painfully clear she didn't kill them. She just shut them down. With pure contempt, she mutters that they aren't even worth the trouble of staining her hands. Then she strides to Hermes and tells him he's safe now. The boy stares at her, shocked, and then the relief hits hard as he realizes the woman just saved him like it was nothing. Hermes yells at Warren Rose that a deadly strike is creeping in from behind, right after a long-range magical shot. She whips around, spots the threat, and with one ruthless motion obliterates the building the attack came from. Then she dead cold admits it wasn't a lie, it really was a shooter, and that the enemies were far better prepared than she ever expected. Rose totally lauds Hermes because he spotted the magic from way across the way, gushing that he's incredible and insisting she's never, ever seen anyone as talented as she is. Hermes stood there, stunned and barely able to speak, while Rose stepped in and said she'd caught his attention. Then she dropped his name. Hermes von Frenbreed, a boy who'd hit rock bottom at 7, yet in that very moment finally found a way to turn his life around. Rose steps forward and claims the title of witch, locking eyes with Hermes and seeing his raw potential. Because this meeting is the exact spark that flips the whole future for the boy. Hermes thanks her for saving his life, and Rose drops her shoulders and admits she only went after those guys because pure rage was driving her. Then she spots something weird. Even though Hermes looked helpless, he somehow still sensed a long-range strike before it hit, like a hidden talent just snapped awake. Hermes breaks down in tears, replaying every last word his father ever told him. He blurts out that he just wanted to be a mage like Rose, then crumbles mid-sentence, admitting he has no power at all, leaving Rose startled like he's hurt, until she finally realizes it's something far deeper. Hermes slams out a bitter vent saying it's pointless. No matter how hard he pushes, no one will ever recognize him. Rose clocks his hurt, steps in without a rush, and tells him she can hear every word of his story. He tells her how his own family ditched him and how even his last friend got ripped away, and Rose just sits there in silence until she fully understands every ounce of loneliness he's been carrying. Rose clings to Hermes with all her strength, whispering that she understands exactly how much it hurts. With a sharp, unblinking stare, she tears into the arrogant nobles who act untouchable while leaning on other people's power, then insists nothing truly changes in this world. And still, she turns to Hermes, telling him it doesn't matter if he lacks lineage magic. He shouldn't swallow what everyone else whispers. Hermes drops the bombshell that he has zero lineage magic, and it absolutely shocks Rose. Then her eyes light up. She blurts out that his magic control and detection are absolutely incredible, tells him he's like a raw diamond, and swears she'll make sure he never squanders that talent. Rose practically bursts with joy because Hermes calls him adorable, and then she even says she wants to take him home, but Hermes just freezes, flustered and embarrassed by all the compliments. Realizing she's pushed him too far, Rose scrambles to steady herself, then shifts into a colder calm, calls his name and talks to him like she means business. Rose leans in and asks Hermes, "So, do you really love magic?" He nods yes with full confidence, then admits the brutal truth. No hereditary magic means he'll never become the kind of mage he's always dreamed of. Still, he breaks into a sincere smile and swears he loves magic more than anything. Rose grips Hermes tight and tells him it's time to set the record straight, because lineage magic is pure power, and it can't be earned through mere effort. Rose talks mid-flight, saying lineage magic is just a natural gift, nothing that automatically makes you strong, and definitely not the only thing that counts. She calls out anyone who gets lazy with that power, warning that plenty coast on having the talent while never grinding to earn real results. Hermes hangs on every word, stunned. Rose tells him straight up, magic isn't some divine miracle at all. It's built from human logic, and even though lineage magic can hit like a truck, anyone who commits can forge their own power. The moment Hermes hears it, his entire world flips upside down. So when they soar under the moonlight, Rose finally spills the truth. Being born with lineage magic trapped to just one single type can feel like a curse wrapped in silver light. Rose snaps and explains why Hermes gets judged for not having lineage magic. Turns out he wasn't cursed at all. He's finally free to craft any magic he wants, blessed with unlimited possibilities. Rose claims Hermes is the one mage with the ultimate freedom in the world, so free he could cook up magics even wilder than hers. She insists she's been hunting for someone just like him. Then Hermes feels his doubts crack, and he starts believing in himself. Under the full moon, Rose reaches out, locks eyes with Hermes and demands, no, dares him to become her disciple, and just like that, his life flips into a whole new beginning. Hermes admits that, when he really thinks it through, Rose's offer smells off. But then she starts talking about magic with that kind of fire, and suddenly he can't shake the feeling that she loves magic just as much as he does. Hermes is fired up by Rose's words, because nothing hits harder than the feeling that she genuinely believes he can become something great. He takes the invitation in his hands, grins, and tells her he can't wait to team up and get to work. 5 years have flown since Hermes met Rose, and now older and fired up, he's sprinting through the city streets, locked in with pure determination. Ever since that day, the girl locked in, throwing her whole heart into her studies and every noble duty. Still, guilt gnawed at her heart, and she doubled down, pushing harder, staying disciplined, never letting what happened fade. The ruler shuts down every argument, swaggering like he owns the air, and boasts that the whole kingdom runs on hereditary magic, because with the strongest power in his hands, he declares, "I am the law." When someone corners him about the nation's future, he brushes them off, spits that they should blame their pathetic magic, and storms away like their worries are nothing. Kadia gets discovered by a squad of soldiers, and their leader, Chris, charges into the moment. He bows formally to her, Lady Keisha von Trachia, and barks at her to stop fighting, and though Keisha looks stunned to see him, her face stays unshaken. Chris hurls the accusation that Kadia is plotting against the state, but she snaps back, no evidence, no case, and he's abusing his power by trying to lock up a duke's daughter without any formal accusation. Then she demands answers and makes it crystal clear she won't sit back and take this quietly. Chris admits he doesn't have a real, official accusation against Kadia. But he slips up and admits he's taking orders from the second prince, Aster, claiming whatever the prince rules is just, even if it means deciding her guilt. Keisha catches it instantly, he's bluffing. Keisha knows that getting locked up right now would basically mean she's confessing she's guilty. Even if she swears Chris is bluffing, she knows better. Noble's turn lies into truth the moment rumors hit, and these last 5 years have drilled it into her. In their world, what you look like matters more than what's real. Keisha refuses to back down, grips her magic, and gets ready to square off with Chris, only for him to sneer that her fight is exactly what criminals do when they try to wriggle free. She snaps back, threatening to unleash her father's power to lock him up, yet she stands her ground and commands him to retreat. Keisha erupts in pure fury, snapping at Chris for his rudeness and blasting his father's arrogance like it's a personal insult. With everything around her shattering, she clenches her resolve and prays for peace anyway, then pours her magic into the air, swearing she'll save a world she can't even see yet because dawn hasn't come. Keisha slams her powerful lineage magic, Soteria Trivia, into the world, and a violent storm of magical energy whips around her like a whirlwind. The enemy gapes in disbelief when he realizes she's got lineage magic too, and he never saw that coming. The enemy snaps back with his own lineage magic, Miss Deltina, unleashing a brutal surge of energy that detonates in the battlefield, ripping through the area and flattening everything in its path. The enemy's assault hits harder than Rose ever imagined. She lunges to fight back, but her magic sputters and won't flow right. And even with her strength failing, she grits her teeth and pushes onward, choosing to face this danger head-on despite the risk. The enemy laughs off Rose's attack like it tickled him, takes barely any damage, and starts loading up his final magic. Then boasts he's got the king's permission to wreak havoc, fires his spell with arrogant swagger, and declares it's time for her to finally sleep. Rose lies on the ground, battered and weak, but she's still awake. While Rose crumples on the ground, barely able to breathe, she flashes back to when a young Hermes, still just a kid, genuinely praised her magic, the one compliment nobody else had ever dared to give. His words soothed her over and over, but it still haunts her that she couldn't protect him back then. Every memory of their childhood, growing up under discrimination, sparks a burning fury in her chest. Rose thinks it's pointless to cling to old pain, nothing can be changed anyway. But when defeat closes in, all she can pray for is Hermes, the boy who once held her hand and promised hope that he could save her. Right at the last second, Hermes bursts in and throws up a blazing magical barrier, stopping the attack meant for Rose cold and sending it flying away, like he's finally cashing in a promise, determined to repay every single thing she ever did for him. Hermes pops up beside Rose, flashes a calm smile, and immediately clocks the tension. Then he blurts that he doesn't fully get what's going on, yet he can clearly see she's in trouble. Rose whips around in shock and instantly spots him. Hermes, all grown up and braver now, bows and calls her Kari-sama, signaling his triumphant return after years gone. Keisha spots Hermes the second he steps into view, and her breath catches, shaken to her core. Old memories slam back in, the tree, their childhood smiles, and the steady support he gave her back then. And with her heart in her throat, she leans in and whispers his name, trembling with feeling. Hermes strides up to Keisha with a grin and says, "Like I promised, I've leveled up into an incredible mage and I'm back for you." His eyes burn with quiet resolve, and you can tell, he finally cashed in the promise he made as a kid. He finally strolled back into the royal capital, the very city that tossed him out before, and the moment he arrived, old faces slammed into him, including Katia, the woman he remembers all too well, and even his own brother. He stands there ice-calm, looking them dead in the eyes, and says it's been way too long since they last saw each other. The story snaps back to the past. She finally meets her master, and as soon as she does, brutal, hostile memories crash through her mind. Kill orders, cold contempt, and a world that feels like it's pressing in from every side, changing her life forever. The boy jolts awake out of nowhere, completely lost, and he snaps the curtains open with a burst of fear. He spun his head around that strange room, trying to figure out where he was, and when he clocked the fancy surroundings, he sank onto the bed completely clueless. Hermes freezes in total shock when he spots the woman sprawled beside him, smiling sweetly as she greets him with a bright good morning. The moment he recalls what happened last night, it smacks him like a punch, leaving him mortified, totally lost, and scrambling to make sense of the mess. Hermes stares at the ceiling, shocked that he woke up in the same bed as that woman, so he has to figure out how it happened. She tells him he was so worn out that he fell asleep halfway there, so she carried him all the way to her place, no rude wake-up needed, then let him crash peacefully beside her, and when he comes to, he realizes he's her apprentice now. Red-faced, Hermes shoots her a grateful look, then blurts out an apology when he realizes she swapped his clothes and scrubbed his body clean. The woman's smile steadied him as she insisted, "No thank you, I'm the one who should be grateful." She confessed she craved that human warmth again, and she'd actually been thrilled to have him fall asleep right beside her, soaking in the comfort of being close. The woman tells Hermes to rest, or if he wants to keep sleeping beside her, yet he shakes it off, still blushing with shyness, and she goes, "Then I'll show you the house before breakfast." She reaches out, Hermes hesitates for a heartbeat, and then takes her hand. Hand in hand, they storm out of the room. Right then, their brand new cohabitation begins. As she swings him through the house, she tells him Hermes can roam anywhere, except the lab, and she shoots him a warning, don't do anything reckless until he learns the place. Hermes watches it all in stunned silence, like the world slipped into a dream, soft, welcoming, and nothing like the brutal life he used to know. Hermes can't help but wonder if he truly deserves all of this, until the woman tells him, right after he's moving in, that he'll need his own room. Even though he's stunned and hesitant, she beams and insists that she lives alone and has more than enough room. Then she thrusts the room key into his hand and tells him to make himself at home and use it however he wants. Hermes freezes when he sees the room he was given, pure chaos, like some forgotten storage junkyard, and the woman looks just as lost, insisting she hasn't organized it in 10 years. Still, Ernie humbly nods and admits he's already thankful for the chance to have some space, while she, blushing hard, dodges the awkward moment and steers them toward breakfast. Hermes spots some burnt food and shoots a confused look at the woman, who snaps that she hasn't cooked in 10 years and usually lives on ready-made meals. Yet Hermes still forces on a polite smile and tells her it's totally fine, because any warm meal hits harder than what he was eating before. Even though she's trying hard, he can't help thinking she's just not cut out for the usual domestic chores. And when he sees the weird food, Hermes forces a grateful smile. Then, not wasting a second, he makes a real, heartfelt request. He wants to learn magic. The woman's eyes widen with shock and pure excitement, and she nods along with a bright smile. Then she drags him straight into a room packed with books, where his learning starts right then and there. Hermes is blown away by the room packed with spellbooks, but the woman panics and apologizes, convinced she hasn't won his trust yet. She tells him she tried to look after him and cook for him just to change his mind. But now she feels like she's failed at everything. Hermes suddenly realizes she really was going for him, and when he explains that he got suspicious about being grabbed by a stranger and dragged to who knows where, because that's totally normal, the woman nods, then lets out a breath of relief that he's actually being careful. Then she grabs his hands with heartfelt sincerity and tells him, "You're a miracle to me, something this rare and precious can't be taken for granted." The woman swears she'll never betray Hermes, as long as he stays honest about wanting to learn magic, and even if he bombs, she refuses to give up on him. Her words hit him hard. Hermes finally admits the fear in his chest, and once he hears she'll guide him as far as he keeps pushing forward, he starts opening up for real. Hermes clings to a brutal past, when his magic was exposed and his life shattered into a nightmare. They screamed abomination, pushed him away, and that wound burned so deep he's terrified of being abandoned again. Tears brimming, he blurts out his apology for doubting her, then pours out a heartfelt thanks, because without her, he'd already be dead. And just like that, hope and magic slam back into his life. Hermes grinned warmly, asked her to look after him from here on out, and proudly called her master as pride swelled in his voice. She was deeply moved by it. She gets choked up and clamps her arms around him, whispering that he's the greatest disciple she'll ever have, because the warmth in that moment seals it all and officially kicks off their master-apprentice bond. As Hermes hunched over his studies, his master drops the truth. All that magic training was leading to one last, final goal: to force him to master the strongest magic she's ever forged, her ultimate masterpiece. And she's dead sure Hermes is the only one who can learn it all the way, even if it takes forever to pull off. Right in front of a massive magical circle, the master blasts out the warning that the days ahead won't be gentle. Then, boom, the training between Hermes and his master kicks into gear, and before they know it, time rockets forward, launching the next chapter of their lives. Hermes stares his master in the eyes, bids him goodbye, and swears he'll be back in the royal capital. He's burning to honor every lesson he's earned, claw back what the past stole from him, and march ahead with zero regrets, while his master just watches in silence, completely moved by that grit. Hermes grins, saying he's headed into the capital to hunt down every kind of magic until he finds the one that's truly his. And then he drops the real reason he came. Once she clocks that Hermes really is leaving, his master snaps into panic, tears spill, as he pleads that he can't survive the thought of being apart from her. She clings to him, blurting out she can't cook, can't clean, and can't do anything alone, like she's got zero chance surviving without his presence. And while all of this lands, Hermes just smirks, already picturing the disaster waiting for her the second he's gone. Hermes, now grown up, snaps no more hugs, and tells his master he's 15 now, time to move on. She relents with a heavy heart, admitting it's finally time for her disciple to leave. Still, with warm affection in her voice, she tells him everything she ever taught was only a seed. And now it's his turn to decide what kind of magic he'll grow into a blooming force in the world. The master talks in a harsh, serious tone about the royal capital, saying it's a cruel, rotten place packed with lazy, ill-intentioned people who blindly accept everything without ever thinking for themselves. Then she warns Hermes that he's about to witness things he really won't be able to handle. Even so, when she asks if he still wants to go, she already has her answer. Hermes stands his ground and declares he's leaving. He'll gladly keep living with his master, no complaints, but now something big calls him in the capital, and he's chasing higher ground so he can stand at her level, because he can't stay there forever. Even if it was a lie, he still demanded she trust his choice, no looking away. Hermes backs him up, insisting he'll pull off something huge. Then he grins and jokes that he'll only return if he's starving, lonely, or on the brink of death. With a confident grin, his master leans in and shouts for him to hit the capital, show his power in front of everyone, and make every hater regret doubting him, because now he's proven he's grown into someone truly dangerous. With a determined grin, Ernie strides toward his brand new destination, while behind him his master tears up in the open field, waving like crazy and shouting, "I love you, my disciple." With pride and affection bursting from her heart. Staring up at the sky, the master grips his words with pure emotion and demands that Hermes go out and reclaim every single one of his desires. Hermes storms back to the capital and boom, runs into a major figure from his past. Now he's stronger, sharper, and finally fearless, ready to repay the favor he got back then, right on the spot, as this new reunion sparks the start of something he's owed for way too long. With a hard, determined stare, Hermes declares, "This time it's me." He's stronger now, and he swears he'll throw his own magic into saving her, kickstarting the real mission he's been meant for. Hermes finally locks eyes with Katia again after forever, and the second she spots him, shock hits her like a punch. As he calmly closes in, he tells her straight up. He had to step in the moment he realized she was in trouble, no matter what he didn't fully understand yet, because he couldn't stand by and ignore her. Hermes steps up before his brother's crew and announces who he is, and his brother glares at him with pure disdain. Shocked he's even alive, his brother remembers how Hermes got kicked out of the family 5 years ago, still wearing that obvious bitterness on his face. He slaps him with the label rejected, barks that he must hand over the girl beside him, and acts like he owns the whole world. Hermes' brother storms up, rage blazing, and yells that he has no business interfering since he's just a lowborn commoner with no magical bloodline. Hermes stays calm and fires back, asking why he's accusing the girl. She snaps into action fast, insisting she never once stained the Duke's honor. Still, the brother digs in and tells Hermes to stay out of it because he's been kicked out of the nobility, and it's time he remembers that. Hermes brings it up to Katia, the night she comforted him while he sat locked up, swearing his spirit would have shattered without her there. Now he's ready to repay that kindness and he wants to do it for real. With a hard stare, he declares there are plenty of ways to help her, starting with cutting down the noble stirring up trouble, even as his brother fumes openly. Katia gets hit hard by Hermes' words. He's basically calling himself unfair for showing up right then and saying things that make her want to cling to him, and Hermes just smiles. Rage blazing in his chest, the brother fires off a brutal magic spell, rips into him for arrogance, and snaps because Hermes dared suggest they get rid of him. Hermes' brother slams into action, unleashing a crushing magical technique forged from sacred symbols and ancient royal titles. Hermes spots the spell the second it hits, one he's seen over and over again in his old battles. With a cocky grin, he tells them he's ecstatic this is the first spell he's seen since coming back to the capital. Hermes decides to pull out his own kind of magic. Then, as he starts the invocation, swirling symbols and raw magical energy blast around him. He shouts a spell packed with forceful words about truth, creation, and miracle, and it leaves everyone stunned. Katja can only stare, because she finally realizes Hermes isn't just showing off. He's using something totally out of the ordinary. Hermes slams the truth down. His magic didn't fall into his lap from nobles or divine blessings. It was forged by his master's lessons and driven by the grind he poured into himself. And it's the clearest proof that his power is all his, earned through sheer growth. Hermes unleashes his creation magic boom, revealing his steel of the origin, and right in front of him, a radiant, mind-bending magical structure rises up like the ultimate proof of everything he forged with his own hands, with zero inheritance and no divine rescue. Rage and denial eat his brother alive as he roars that it's impossible Hermes pulled off superior magic, sneering that his creation is third-rate. So Hermes snaps back, firm and impatient, straight to the point. The noble scrambles to justify himself, insisting his only job was to capture Katia. But his hands betray him because the brother he used to despise has now blown past every expectation. During the confrontation, the enemy yells that nobody will lift a finger for a lowborn commoner trapped right in the middle of the chaos. Hermes stays stone calm and slams his spell into motion, and Katia can't look away, she's watching his raw power. Then she drops the truth. Isteli of the origin isn't just magic, it's the one created to break down, analyze, and rebuild any kind of magic, the very foundation of how magical creation is born. Katia tells us magic has rules carved into it, and you can only redo a spell by matching its original structure, but her hereditary magic chains her so she can't rise past that ceiling. Hermes, he's got no such limits. Because he never inherited a drop of magic lineage, he's got the crazy theoretical power to recreate any spell imaginable, something no regular mage can even dream of. As his opponent stares down something that shouldn't even exist, Hermes stays ice calm, staring at what he just pulled off. He even recreates lineage magic, the one thing no one should be able to copy, right before everyone's eyes. He makes it happen because of everything he learned and the brutal training he faced since he was a kid. And this isn't some maybe it works idea. He executes magical recreation flawlessly in the middle of a real fight. Consumed by pure frustration, Hermes' brother bursts into screams of desperation. He can't swallow the fact that he's been left behind, Because to him, Hermes wasn't a rival, he was a mistake history should have erased. But Hermes, steady, silent, locked in, starts weaving his magic with total precision, ready to hit back with power instead of a single word. Hermes unleashes his magic with razor-sharp precision, and the energy slams into Chris head-on. Boom. It hurls him hard, cracking through the night while everyone around them recoils, screams his name, and still can't stop his fall. After Chris goes down, his allies freak out and sprint to his side, and in that chaos Hermes and Katia snap into action, then bolt before anyone can stop them. Rage and humiliation swallowed Chris as he stormed through his command, yelling uncontrollably for the soldiers to kill Yerms while an imminent chase erupted across the city. Hermes and Katia barely slipped away and found each other again in a quiet, distant alley, safe at last. Then, as he's still catching his breath from the sprint, he's hit with a shock. 5 whole years have passed, and she's grown into a fully mature woman. Katia bursts in, eyes blazing with fury, firing questions and accusations as she spills the truth. He's been hunting for him nonstop all this time. Katia crumples at Hermes' feet and blurts, "Why didn't you ever trust me?" She pours out the hurt, the terror of losing him, and every regret about not being able to stand by his side. Hermes just goes still, silent as the words land, heavy, crushing, and impossible to ignore. With a heartfelt look, he simply apologizes. Then Katia's dam breaks and she starts crying in his arms. Katia's eyes brimmed with tears as she thanked Hermes for making it through, then she forgave him on the spot, relief washing over her when he stood right in front of her. With a tender gesture, Hermes pressed his forehead to hers and apologized for being powerless back then. And in that quiet moment, they just held the memories weight together, both breathing out at last. Katja starts peppering Hermes with questions about his life from the last 5 years. "I can't stop wondering where he lives, how he lives, and what he's going to do next." Hermes starts to talk, but the answers come out blurry and that shocks her. With a timid grin, he confesses he's got a few ideas floating around, but he hasn't locked in a single decision yet. Katja beams with excitement, invites Hermes to move into her house, and promises she'll hire him. Hermes is hit with this sudden proposal out of nowhere, and his mind goes totally blank as he scrambles to figure out what to do next. A trembling subordinate drops to his knees before royalty, begging for mercy after he fails to grab Katia, and the prince snaps at him coldly, saying he'd been handed plenty of soldiers, and still got outplayed by some nobody mage. Shamed by his defeat, the prince cooks up a lie in the report, just so he doesn't have to admit he got beaten by an exiled opponent. Meanwhile, he blasts the truth. Katia is a rising threat to the country, and orders the mage who helped her be dragged in for questioning, then shuts down her chance to roam free. The prince watches Exiled as his subordinate gets humiliated and smirks at the contempt. In his mind, anyone who forgets their place has to be put down, just like all the others before. No mercy, no hesitation. He tosses him aside as nothing more than another annoying problem. Once he tore himself away from his master's house, the boy rushed back to the capital. And there he found Katia, his childhood friend, getting crushed by an unfair accusation. Then he pushed his lineage magic through the Esteli of the origin, lit up the truth, and pulled her out of danger. Stunned by her offer, he still stepped up and walked straight with her to the Tarkok's family mansion, where the protagonist shows up beside Katia. Stunned by how massive the place still felt, even though he'd been here before, he watched one of the servants burst into motion at the sight of her. Overjoyed she'd returned, but clearly panicking that she'd taken so long. Layla panics the second she spots Katja getting hurt and showing up in filthy clothes. Katja leans in and calms her down. Then Layla's eyes widen as she recognizes Hermes, the very boy who used to play with Katja back in the day, and she can't help but mention how everybody's talking about him getting kicked out for having no talent. But still, the moment she sees him safe and sound, relief hits her like a wave. Katja greets Hermes with warmth at the Trokia home and promises him, straight to his face, that her servants will never look down on him like the Fenrir house did. Hermes lets out a breath of relief, and before long they're whisked straight to Lord Georgian, where Katja officially introduces him. Lord Georgian turns to Hermes and thanks him for shielding Katia, then totally freezes when he realizes just how grown-up Hermes has gotten. When he hears that Katia wants to hire him as a guard, he fires off a request to Hermes, "Show me your magic again," because his daughter still can't stop talking about how powerful it was last time. Hermes nods, gets ready, and prepares to unleash the skills. Hermes whips out his magic and leaves Lord Georgian stunned, because the noble swears he's never witnessed anything like it. Then when they press about where the technique came from, Hermes dodges the truth and claims it was taught to him by some mysterious person. Spying the danger, Hermes' master, watching from the shadows, orders him to stop talking about her. And when Hermes refuses to spill a single more detail, he seals his mentor's identity like a locked secret. Even with Duke Trokia breathing down his neck as the noble House Hermes leader, he refused to spill a single detail about his master. He makes it crystal clear, this choice isn't fear, and it is because some superior orders him around. It's pure loyalty. Hermes refuses to betray the teachings and trust of the mentor who trained him, and with iron resolve he keeps his mentor's identity safe. The Duke grills Hermes, wondering if he can copy lineage magic, but Hermes snaps back that it isn't a simple copy at all. It's a full reconstruction built from what he observes and the theories he's worked out. When they corner him about the limits, how many times he can use it or whether those spells can be swapped, Hermes tells him flat out, no limits. He can keep using the remade magic as many times as he wants, and every earlier magic stays intact with zero restrictions. The Duke is left reeling when he realizes Hermes' magic has no limits. It's able to recreate any spell endlessly without restrictions, and he knows this could rip apart the entire world of noble society. He then cornered Hermes and demanded to know his goals. Why, after getting this powerful, he'd come back to the royal capital. And he started grilling him hard about why he saved Katia, because if he can't make sense of that, he can't truly accept him. The Duke's gut-wrenching suspicions hit hard. He doesn't trust Hermes one bit, thinks he's trying to worm his way back into the nobility, and clearly smells ulterior motives. Hermes cuts the talk short. He admits that distrust is bound to happen, but he insists loud and clear that his real goal isn't to bring sadness or to control anyone. He's hunting for a magic that finally belongs to him alone. Hermes squares up to the Duke and spills his real dream, no backing down. He's not chasing prestige or trying to kiss up to the nobility. He's obsessed with one thing: forging his own magic, fully his, born from sweat, study, and learning, not some hand-me-down bloodline power. Hermes finally spills the truth. His real dream has always been to unravel how magic is made, so one day, he can create a spell that nobody else can claim because it'll be his from the start. Inspired by his master, he's driven to forge something even more stunning than hereditary magic, something that screams, "I did this," and proves he truly exists. Hermes spills that he stepped in for Katia, because even when she was backed into a corner, her mind still raced to help others before herself. Seeing she was still the same kind girl who had stood by him before, he felt this rush of need to repay that kindness. The Duke shoots down Hermes, reason as naive based on a quick read, then like a father admits the truth. He's over the moon, watching someone trust his daughter that much feels like pure joy. At last he finally admits he can breathe easy now, because it's Hermes guarding Katia. Katia's face instantly burns as her father's comment hits, and she bolts to make it crystal clear. Hermes isn't thinking about her that way. Inside, she can't stop smiling, because now Hermes will always stand guard beside her, even as she scrambles to bury her feelings. Hermes spots how everything turned out even better than expected, and he thanks Katia for the warm welcome, because even though he'd braced himself to sleep outside, she got him a comfy room instead. As he pauses to think, it hits him, Lord Jurgen will have to slam the brakes on his brother's involvement, since the order came straight from Prince Aster. For now, though, the enemies are trapped and contained. Hermes snaps into focus, realizing he's got to take guarding Katja seriously, because he has no clue what kind of danger could strike next. Katja steps out onto the balcony and calls him up, breathless, saying everything's gone down, and they never even got a real chance to talk. Hermes blurts out that he's been wondering how Katja turned out so stunning, and she's left totally stunned, then quickly blushes and covers her embarrassment. Complaining that he's way more blunt than he used to be, Hermes is totally thrown off by the backlash, while Caudy digs up memories of the past when he praised her, but in a much quieter, shakier voice. Hermes tries to keep things formal and stays at arm's length, calling Katia with the proper respect since their positions have changed. But Katia snaps back that he should call her the way he used to, insisting that as her attendant he's supposed to follow her orders. Hermes finally gives in, still scratching his head, and blurts Katie, and just like that, Katie's face lights up with embarrassment, but she's secretly satisfied. While they talk beneath the night sky, Katia leans in and asks about Hermes' master, only for him to snap that he can't say much thanks to the man's social rank and that, yeah, he'd been judged a total failure. Even so, Hermes grins and declares that his master is the world's greatest magic user, and that he'll back him as his one forever. Hermes asks how Katia's last 5 years went, and she admits everything's been wild, especially her engagement to Prince Aster. Hermes can't believe his ears when he learns it's real, and Katia smirks that if she had a fiancé, not even he, the childhood friend and servant, would be the one showing up at that hour of the night. Katja drops a bombshell. Her engagement to Prince Aster was cut the very month before, and now she's nothing but the daughter of a cast-off noble, yet she still flashes a calm, serene smile like it doesn't sting. Hermes dresses up in fancy clothes, and Layla leans in, grinning as she praises how amazing he looks, insisting Katia is going to absolutely love it. As he strides down the stairs, Hermes spots how empty the residence feels, no servants nearby, especially around Katia. And on his very first day as a guard, Layla grabs him and begs for a private word. Hermes fires off a question, "Katia, do you have any real, trustworthy friends in the capital?" But Layla cuts in fast, flat out saying there's no one like that, because Katia can't open her heart to anyone. After all, the moment people learn she's the Duke's daughter, they only come close for their own reasons. Then Layla makes a straight-up demand. Hermes has to be Katia's emotional support, someone who truly gets her feelings and never, ever leaves her behind. Hermes is lost in thoughts of the 5 years he spent away from the capital, and he realizes Katia had it rough as the Duke's daughter, especially when her engagement fell apart. He tells himself that supporting her is now more crucial than ever, and just as he's about to leave, she suddenly calls out to him, brimming with excitement. Hermes shows up dressed to the nines, humbly apologizing for the delay, then Katia spots him and freezes in shock, so mortified she covers her face and begs him to stay back for now. The other girls try to lift her spirits, insisting she's just impressed, while Hermes, totally thrown off, asks himself if he really looked that good in those clothes. Hermes, fresh in his brand new uniform, stands before Katia and introduces himself with total confidence, promising her, straight from the heart, that caring for her will be his honor. As her childhood friend and devoted attendant, he swears he'll stay by her side and offer his support starting right now. Katyu remembers how her mother vanished when she was still little, so desperation hit hard and she sprints after her begging her, please don't go. In Katia's memories, her mom's smile glows so warmly it hurts, and right before she leaves, she whispers to Katia, don't ever forget me. Before Katia leaves, her mother drops words that hit like a thunderclap. Magic isn't for domination, it's for guarding the weak, and real happiness only comes when you stand up for everyone else's happiness. Katia, choked with emotion, sprints after her, clinging to her final request, become a noble worthy of real respect. Katya freezes in sheer despair as a brutal attack smashes into the city, screaming for her mother while the flames roar around her. Her body locks up. Terror crashes in, and she sobs as she reaches out, begging it to stop, crushed by helplessness and pain as the tragedy engulfs everything. Katia slips out of sleep in total silence, her mind heavy with old memories that refuse to let go. She stares at a family portrait, tells her mom good morning with all the love and longing in her voice. Then, just a few days later, Hermes officially becomes her guard, and right then a whole new chapter starts with him by her side. At a meeting, a soldier blurted out that a dungeon had been unearthed in the Hawaii mountains, right near another count's territory, then told them how monsters swept into a nearby village and somehow nobody died. When danger crashes in, the Duke scrambles to evacuate the civilians and deal with the threat himself, but his soldiers are stuck busy, so Katia, fierce and determined, steps up and offers to face it personally. Katya stands her ground and refuses to back down about going to the attack site, insisting that as a noble bloodline mage, duty isn't optional, she has to protect the people. Even though the Duke hesitated at first, he saw her grit right away, then gave her his approval, reminding her that she's always fought for others and made a promise to her mother. To become a noble people can truly respect. Hermes takes the mission to protect Katya one more time, and the Duke backs him with full trust, ordering him to bring soldiers and to bolt back the moment things turn dangerous. Meanwhile, Hermes can't help but remember Katya's mother, this kind, courageous woman who never backed down. Died protecting the city from a monster horde when they were both just 6. Katya still clings to that memory with warmth in her heart. While they march with the soldiers, Katya leans in and asks Hermes if he's ever faced monsters. Hermes admits that he took them on during his training days. Katya lays it out, this is bad and it's getting worse fast. Monsters are multiplying like wildfire, spreading faster than anyone can stop them, and if nobody shuts it down now, they'll grow into a threat big enough to endanger humanity itself. And right now, she says they're the #1 danger facing the entire nation. Katya explains that those twisted buildings with labyrinth-like insides aren't just ruins. They're monster dens called dungeons, and once monsters settle in, the whole place turns into their base. Because when their numbers explode, they don't just cause trouble, they unleash real disasters on the kingdom. One of the knights erupts in furious protest at Katya, screaming that hiring Hermes is a huge mistake, that he's just a boy and shouldn't be the one forced to handle a mission this dangerous. He lays out the ugly truth about dungeon diving, the danger, and the crushing responsibility that comes with it. Katya firm shoots back that she picked Hermes for his skills, plain and simple, no favoritism, just earned merit. Katya and Hermes get cornered by a cocky blowhard, Count Eldridge himself. She gets thrown into a fresh round of provocation when he snaps, calling her a flawed young lady. And the tension spikes the moment the Count arrives, radiating hostility as he scoffs at her and demands why she's even here. Hermes clocks the name instantly, remembering that his territory rubs up against Katya's. Count Eldridge demands everyone bow to him, declaring he'll storm the dungeon right now, and he orders Katya to get out. He goes at it again, pushing the idea that she should feel moved by him shouldering her burden, and Katya shuts him down fast. This land is under her duchy's rule. Hermes just watches in grim silence, his irritation blazing as the Count's arrogance keeps stomping forward. Count Eldridge snaps and hammers Katya with a barrage of vicious insults. He blasts her for trying to grab the dungeon's credit, slams her as useless, and even throws in that the prince rejected her and she can't use magic at all. Meanwhile, Hermes visibly squirms, and Katia just sits there listening, deadly serious but clearly shaken. When Eldridge throws himself into the spotlight and claims God chose him, a monster bursts out of nowhere and slams into him before he can even react. Hermes doesn't even flinch. He blasts the creature down fast right there while everyone watches. With a calm face, he delivers an ironic apology and swears he only acted because he believed Eldridge was in danger. Hermes, all calm smiles, needles Eldridge, straight up asking what happens if they shrug off a surprise attack, then rips into his arrogance and incompetence in front of everyone, pointing out Eldridge didn't even see the monster come for them. Rage surges through the Count's veins as he finally snaps, blowing up in fury because someone he thought was nothing but a servant just humiliated him. Hermes fires back with a smug little joke, insisting he only tried to help, even if he's just a kid with no training, and then he needles Eldridge by telling the Count he should be grateful, crying his heart out while he says it. Fuming with humiliation, Eldridge roared that revenge is coming, shoving orders at his soldiers, and swearing he'll never forget Hermes' face. While the others stared in shock, they couldn't believe how boldly Hermes took control of the whole situation. Hermes shoots an apology right after he admits he got carried away. But the guard, clearly shaken, finally admits he was wrong about him. He regrets judging Katia by looks alone, praises her courage for facing even a Count just to protect her master, and Katia watches the peace settle in with pure relief. And the other soldiers roar with renewed energy, pushing forward with the mission, more united than ever. Hermes blitzes through several monsters in seconds, slicing them down with pinpoint magic. Katia watches him work with total control, flashes a confident smile and praises his efficiency, like she's proving with every word that she finally trusts him as her guardian. Hermes tells them he's running a straight-up general magic boosted by Estelle of the Origin, so he can cast spells without a single chant. No lineup magic power, sure, but the speed and convenience blow everyone away. The soldiers hail the dungeon's progress, crediting Hermes' help for every win, while Katia and the guards stride ahead with total confidence, until a sudden disturbance snaps their attention. The group finally runs into a colossal, terrifying monster, its massive magical aura blasting the air like a warning siren. Hermes feels that wild energy punch the air, and he knows it can only be one thing: the dungeon boss is here. And just like that, everyone's mood snaps into battle mode as they ready themselves for the final showdown. Hermes spots the monster and shouts that it's a dragon turtle, what people call the black tortoise, because underneath that look, it's a real dragon and he's battled creatures just like it before during his training. Seeing Count Eldridge in trouble, Iami pushes for a quick retreat, just long enough to regroup, build strength, and plot their next move with the Justice Minister's backing. The dragon turtle's thunderous roar rips through the air, snapping every retreat plan in half, and Hermes and Katia freeze as its sudden hostility throws them on full alert. Danger is here, and it's coming fast. The dragon turtle slams into the ground with raw power, and the whole structure erupts in violent shaking. Hermes throws himself in front of Katia as the path crumbles under their feet, and the soldiers scramble to back off too late, because mass destruction detonates and spreads like wildfire. The group barely makes it. Right in the nick of time, a protective barrier snaps into existence and shields them. Hermes checks on Katia and assures her she's okay, but his face turns grim. The escape route is gone for good. Trapped on their own, they're about to crash straight into the dungeon's boss with no way to run back. The tortoise dragon screams in pure rage and slams its body into the group's barrier, blasting debris everywhere, and Hermes rockets himself in front of Katia and the soldiers, bracing to take the hit head-on. Then the chapter cuts off at peak tension, setting up a battle that's about to decide everything. The tortoise dragon surges forward with shockingly fast speed for something built that big. He barrels an enormous paw straight at the knights. One soldier gets hurled flying, and the captain barely scrambles to block it in time, still feeling the monster's crushing impact as he realizes this battle is going to be way tougher than he ever expected. Hermes steadies his magic with laser-sharp precision, then unleashes a storm of direct shots that slam into the tortoise dragon, each blast piling up until cracks spider through its shell. Since their normal attacks were doing nothing, Hermes leaned in and told Katia to unleash her lineage magic. No hesitation, Katia plants herself and launches a brutal spell. When the dragon backs off even for a heartbeat, she shoots her hand up and unleashes Satria Trivia, an ancient magic that churns to life all around her, like the air is getting ready for the moment they hit back with everything they've got. That tortoise dragon lurches forward at shockingly fast speed, slipping right past Katia's attack like it saw the strike coming. She watches the creature dart with insane agility, and right when she's about to move again, Hermes slides in beside her, grips her hand firmly and promises, "I'll help," ready to strike together. Hermes snaps his magic into place and triggers the spell *** Blood Chain ***. Katya yanked the tortoise dragon into magical chains before it could lash out, and the beast froze midair, trapped and unable to move an inch. While Katya stared in stunned awe, feeling their power locked together with perfect, terrifying timing. Even with Hermes' chains latched onto it, the tortoise dragon heaves out a raw blast of power and snaps part of the bindings, leaving the soldiers staring in stunned silence, while Katya and Hermes snap to the truth that this thing still has tons of strength. Katya's frustration flares as she realizes they completely underestimated the threat. Hermes watches the dragon snap up a crushing barrier that shrugs off the last attack like it's nothing, then feels it, an aura of magic so close to lineage magic it makes his stomach drop. That same exact sensation burned into his past. And right then Hermes knows the truth. This enemy is far more dangerous than they ever dared to imagine. A year ago Hermes faced a savage dragon, and that fight still slams back into his head like a thunderclap, bringing back the crushing attacks, the breathless terror, and the raw fight to stay alive. The enemy's magical energy hits like deja vu, same power, same pulse, and it snaps that familiar urgency back into him. Hermes remembers the red dragon he fought with his master and the chilling truth. This new foe shrugs off normal magic too. Back in an earlier dungeon run, he learned the hard way that you can't brute force creatures like this, only a different plan works. So he digs in, plodding fast, because beating this thing takes more than raw magical strength. While the knights fought tooth and nail to shield Katya, one of them screams at her to run with Hermes and get reinforcements fast. But Katya shuts the idea down hard. She refuses to bolt and leave her comrades behind on the battlefield, even as danger closes in, swearing she won't abandon them and proving just how fierce her responsibility and resolve really are. Katya freezes mid-step, torn between staying with her comrades or walking away and abandoning them. She finally grasps the sacrifice they're making for her, but the terror of losing them freezes her dead in the chaos, confused, crushed, and aching while she panics. What am I supposed to do right now? Then her mother's memory floods in like a lifeline, pushing her to find the courage in her words and choose the right path. Hermes clutches Katya close and shouts for her like it's an emergency. He spills the truth. Only one attack can crack the dragon's barrier, but to pull it off, he has to buy time and unleash a fully charged chant. And as the danger closes in around them, both of them lock onto the same chilling thought. This move is the make or break moment of the whole fight. Hermes stands there dead serious and demands, "Hold the dragon still for just 5 seconds, then I'll fire the decisive attack." That tiny window becomes the turning point that flips the whole fight. Hermes bursts into a sprint, pouring his magic into the air as he raises his hand and draws a blazing magic circle. The dragon spots the motion and instantly barrels in, ready to smash its way into an attack. But Hermes darts aside with insane agility, eyes locked in as he readies the final game-changing spell. Hermes rockets forward with jaw-dropping speed, slipping past every dragon strike while magic surges through his body to make him stronger by the second, leaving the knights staring in awe, because he's fighting like a full-on professional, proving that his deadly mix of agility and magic is built to win battles. As Hermes charges, a dragon lunges in to strike, right then one of the knights. He slammed his footwork in the way, yanked his sword up to block the strike, and roared that it wasn't happening on his watch. This gives Hermes the perfect chance to push forward. No sword meets him here. Thanks to that knight who slammed himself in the way, the team cripples the dragon just enough to drop it to its knees. Keisha wastes no time, locks onto her final strike with total confidence, and the beast bellows as agony rips through it. Katya blasts the last of her magic to pin the dragon down, then panic hits because her power is nearly gone. But she clenches her will anyway, stomps the surge back just long enough to buy time for the final strike. Hermes throws praise at Katya, hyping her for buying just enough time to turn the whole situation around. Once the last bit of magic snapped into place, he unleashed a roaring fire spell, aiming straight through the dragon's defenses with one brutal game-ending hit. Hermes snaps his magic into place with surgical precision. They unleash a brutal remake of the alternate dragon breath. Just a wave of fire roars out and slams straight into the enemy dragon, swallowing it whole with power that hits like the real breath of a true dragon. Hermes' strike slams straight into the dragon, and it erupts in a brutal scream as flames chew through its body. The blast smashes its magical shield, and then the fire starts swallowing it whole. It couldn't survive the recreated magic's blast. The crew stares at the dragon's fallen body, and nobody dares to relax. Hermes studies everything in icy silence while a knight over there throws a victory celebration, convinced they've won. Then Katya's eyes widen, because she realizes the magic Hermes just used isn't like the rest. It's different, and it hooks her attention in a way that feels personal. Hermes tells you he didn't just cast a spell. He ripped the magic straight from a dragon he found in a different dungeon. Recreated with the help of the Isle of the Origin, this technique lets you copy any magic, even the ones unleashed by top-tier monsters, and it can even outshine lineage magic. Katja is stunned and moved by what Hermes can do, so she praises him for becoming an unbelievable mage. When he asks if she's hurt, she shakes it off and denies it, without saying what's really going on inside her. Katja looks shaken to the core, her voice cracking as she blurted out that she feels completely useless. Even with her powerful lineage magic, the kind everyone swears can topple dragons, she still couldn't do what she'd planned. She likens herself to Hermes, then grinds her teeth, because everyone treats her like a broken young lady who can't use magic. Katja keeps blaming herself, screaming inside that she couldn't use all her power when it mattered most, and that her weakness put everyone in danger. She's convinced Hermes must be disappointed in her, but then Hermes calmly calls her name, grabs her hand, and lets her feel it. He's not judging her at all. Hermes leans in and asks Katja straight up, "Back when everyone called me useless and talentless, did I ever let you down?" He still remembers how they treated him and how it left scars, but he shoots back, crystal clear. He's not disappointed in her at all. Then he repeats the exact answer she gave him before, proving he truly trusts her. Katja's jaw drops, tears sting her eyes as she remembers doubting he'd ever become a true great mage, only to realize she was completely wrong. Hermes tells Katja that if you grind that hard, greatness as a mage is inevitable, but something is choking her magic and he won't let it slide, so he makes a bold, direct move. He'll recreate her spell, Satria Trivia, using his own power, showing off his ironclad confidence in her future and pushing her to uncover exactly what's holding her back. The boy leans in and tells the girl how to recreate a spell called Soteria Trivia Asterisk, then proves it, saying she has to master the original magic down to the core, using the same exact style it was born with. The girl watches him and realizes the problem with lineage magic. It's so tangled that even the one who's born with it might miss the finer details. The boy keeps going, saying lineage mages can cast without ever cracking open how their magic is built, same as how humans move without knowing every anatomy detail. And that's why hidden effects or mistakes usually slip right past them. Staring at the girl, he decides her trouble is probably rooted in that, and he promises he'll investigate it himself. Count Eldridge storms into the spot where the two young ones are hanging around, only to realize the dungeon's boss is already dead, so his job just got way easier. He doesn't spare a glance at the others and sprints up the stairs with his soldiers at his back, while the girl gasps, tries to block him, and gets brushed off as the Count steamrolls past her protests and keeps charging forward. Count Eldridge stumbles on a legendary artifact deep in the dungeon, and the moment he sees it, his excitement explodes. He's already picturing the huge rewards he'll earn if he hands it to the royal family. Stacks of treasures, new lands, and even a promotion to a higher noble title. The girl marched right up to Count Eldridge, pointing a finger and accusing him of trying to steal the spotlight for conquering the dungeon and wiping out its boss. The Count snaps back in furious rage, swearing the victory was always supposed to be his, and accusing her group of stealing the credit, while the two kids stand there fuming and eyeing him like something's off. The girl declares the dragon's corpse is all the proof they need, insisting it proves who truly smashed the dungeon boss, and she snaps at Count Eldridge to stop meddling and twisting the truth. The Count smirks with pure malice, plotting to wipe out every shred of proof, including the monster's carcass, since they're trapped up in the mountains with zero witnesses around. Count Eldridge slams his lineage magic, **Iolos***, into action, and a blazing magic circle erupts behind him as he calls up the winds of the south, north, and divine realm, gearing up to unleash a massive, devastating spell. With a smug grin, the Count unleashes his lineage magic like it belongs to him, and him alone. Provoking the girl, he sneered that she was defective and that she'd never ever break his spell. He rants that magic strength is everything in this country, then looks down on anyone he calls weak, while the girl and the boy brace themselves, fully aware of the danger waiting right in front of them. The Count taunts the girl. If her magic is truly stronger, he'll swallow his pride, accept her words, and retreat, so Katja seethes, yet admits his power is terrifyingly real, knowing she'll have to find a way to win through it somehow, while the boy steps in and throws her a game-changing bit of advice. The boy says magic won't really activate on command. It soaks up the user's emotions instead, and he's convinced Katja's trouble comes from emotions that got tangled up or sent the spell in the wrong direction. He makes it crystal clear. What matters most is how real your feelings are, because that sincerity is what supercharges the spell with raw emotion. He says most people can't read their own feelings, and once that slips, it wrecks their magic performance fast. Katja sinks into a deep, burning reflection and finally cracks the real reason she's using magic right now. At first, she tells herself it's to stop the Count's cruelty, or that his provocation pushed her into this, but she realizes those are just surface excuses. The truth hits harder. She's reaching for justice and living her righteousness like a true noble. Katja finally sees it. She's been swallowing her real feelings for so long, calling it duty and pretending she was just an exemplary noble, but the truth hits hard. She hasn't been herself at all, she's only been doing what everyone expected of her. But as she stands there and the truth hits her in the face, she finally understands the real feeling pounding in her heart. Unable to fight her true feelings anymore, Katia unleashes her magic with total explosive intensity. She explodes in outrage when she sees the Count trying to steal credit for something he didn't lift a finger for. She doesn't care about the effort or the risks she and everyone else took. Her fury just keeps growing, and her heart screams for justice until she makes it crystal clear. This disrespect ends now. Katja finally unlocks her lineage magic in full, and the Count's jaw drops as her power hits. Meanwhile, Eldridge freezes in shock, realizing this spell is nothing like anything he's ever heard before. Katia strides right up to him, her voice shaking with steel as she snaps that he should be ashamed of what he's done. Katja shouts the Soteria trivia spell, and armed skeletal warriors crash into the Count with brutal force, while Eldridge, swamped by pure terror, stumbles back in panic, frozen as she realizes the overwhelming power she just woke up. The Count lunges to defend himself, claiming Katia's magic is just a trick, then warns it'll only stain her name worse as he tries to scare everyone into backing off. But the boy fires back with pure irony, jabbing the truth in his face. The Count himself said there were no witnesses. With a teasing grin, he dares him to wipe out every shred of evidence, then he throws the same threat back, using the Count's exact words from before. The boy needles the Count, basically daring him to beat Katia's magic. Because if he loses, people will swear a monster killed him, and the only magical trail left will scream Katia. At the same time, Eldridge loses his nerve, barking orders like his voice might break as he demands the creature be taken down. But the boy stays stone calm, lifts his hand, and lets everyone know this time he's the one calling the shots. Katia's ally charges in and drops the Count's knights, cracking the fight open with one line. He needed to let all that pent-up rage out. Shocked out of his mind and choking on panic, Eldridge drops to the ground and begs for mercy, while the boy's calm, unshakable stare makes one thing crystal clear. The power is in the Count's hands now, and Eldridge knows exactly what he has to do to survive. With no way out and no strength left, Count Eldridge finally breaks, acknowledging his defeat with a crushed, defeated look. He announces the artifact is theirs, spot on, they've earned the right to conquer this dungeon, and then the trap snaps shut. Caught ya, kid, he grins, while the staff drifts right in front of them and lands safely in their hands. As the Count scrambles away, humiliated, the crew finally lets loose and celebrates in safe territory. Katia, shocked by her own power, demanded the boy admit he'd helped. He just shook his head and said the magic was all hers. And when it hit her, her voice broke as she realized this was the very first time she'd ever pulled off something that strong by herself. The boy blurts out that Katia's spell was the most beautiful execution he's ever seen, like he couldn't even find the right words. Still stunned, she admits that even with the noble magic in her bloodline, it feels like something's missing. And he pushes her on, telling her this isn't the ceiling of her power, that she has to feel it in her bones. Katja leans in and asks if he could awaken a power just like hers too. With a cocky grin, he says, "Yeah, I believe it." Then lets slip the truth. He's got a selfish dream tied to her magic, and he wants to use that incredible power himself. And Katia, shaken and determined, tells him to go all out, because this is the least she can give back for everything he's done for her. A few days later, in a rare quiet moment inside the Duke's residence, Katia sips her black tea, raving about how the flavor hits perfect, and the boy smiles, telling her he used to brew this exact cup for his old master all the time. Then Katia admits he's incredible at it, and he just beams, proud and satisfied that he finally nailed her taste. Hermes dazzles the mansion servants with his home skills, and everyone can't stop praising him for handling chores with the same talent he brings as a professional. Katia hears him say he'll do anything she asks, and she's so stunned she can't even react. She suddenly chokes on her tea and the others panic, rushing over to make sure she's okay. After the tea disaster, one of the servants tries to smooth things over, then blurts out to Katia that her feelings for Hermes are basically impossible to miss. Katia slips into denial, insisting she can't say that out loud, trying to justify the gap in their social status and how he probably sees the whole relationship. Yet she can't hide the fact that she's falling apart inside. Katia's spiraling, she can't tell what she's really feeling, and she's terrified Hermes will judge her after her engagement just collapsed, worried he'll think she's fickle. As the servants scramble to soothe her, trying to calm the storm inside her, Katja can't stop thinking about how much Hermes has changed. He used to grin like everything was simple, but now he's sharper, older, and somehow farther away, and it leaves her totally rattled, not knowing how to even step toward him. Katia admits it. Yeah, she knows it makes her sound selfish, but deep down, she really wants Hermes to care a little more and show her more interest. Even after he dropped a compliment, he said it so casually that it only made her frustration flare up. The servant catches on fast and realizes Katia wants to lure Hermes, the shy, naive boy from before, into showing the more emotional, spontaneous side of himself, and Katia, red-faced with embarrassment, finally caves and agrees. The servant practically bursts with excitement, and swears there's a surefire way to make Hermes show his real feelings. Katia has to go on a date with him. That blunt suggestion blindsides Katia, and she just freezes, speechless, stunned like her brain can't catch up. The chapter kicks off with the servant shooting out a bold idea: set up a date between Katia and Hermes. She tells them to take a casual stroll through the capital like normal young people, so they can soak in the moment and flaunt Katia's charm, while Katia's already buzzing, thinking about locking down plans and schedules, and desperate is scrambling to rein in her friends' excitement before they decide everything without her say-so. A servant snaps Katia's attention, spotting the exhaustion on her face, dark circles screaming she hasn't slept since the dungeon conquest, and reminds her that she spent the whole night buried in reports about monster damage. Stunned, Katia realizes even her father, Lord Jurgen, had been quietly worrying about her this whole time. In another corner of the mansion, he finally admits it. Since his wife died, Katia has thrown herself into her noble duties with everything she's got. Katia is stunned when her father admits he regrets how much freedom she's lost, because she's been drowning herself in noble duties, and he tells her she should finally live like a girl her age and snag a little fun every now and then. Stung by his words, Katia digs deep, gathers her courage, and invites Hermes out, ready to find out exactly where this could lead. The very next day, Katia and Hermes hit the streets together, strolling through the royal capital side by side. Hermes looks over the city with a rush of nostalgia, like those days as a kid just flashed in his mind. And when he tells Katia he'd been thinking about coming here already, he thanks her and can't hide how thrilled he is. While Katia, flustered and shy, starts to get used to the moment. Right before the date, the servant slips up to Katia and soothes her. Don't stress about the prince's breakup. There was never real affection between you two. It was the prince who pushed for this union in the first place. She pushes her to lay it all out, tell the truth about how she really feels, and even asks Katia to let herself enjoy the day, no holding back. Katia's heart gets caught on those words, her walls start cracking, and suddenly she finds the courage to step forward. Katia clings to Hermes' words, how real heartfelt feelings supercharge magic and make it hit harder. With a bright smile and eyes that shine, she reaches out full of grit, finally owning her feelings and gearing up to say them out loud without fear. Katia's cheeks burn with embarrassment, but she clenches her courage and keeps a grip on Hermes' hand as they walk side by side. Caught off guard, he demands the reason, and she scrambles to hide her tells, blaming it on the crowd in the capital and insisting they'll get separated if he keeps staring. Blushing hard, she swears it's totally normal, but her every gesture screams the truth. Katia, still gripping Hermes' hand, practically drags him through the capital, buzzing with pure excitement. She spins him through the city's big moments, the market, the neighborhoods, everything, while she explains it all so smoothly. Hermes hangs on her every word, stunned by her unstoppable energy and the new spark forming between them. As Hermes strolls beside Katia, nostalgia hits him hard, like he's reliving old memories with every step. Remember when she'd take him out for walks every time he got so deep into studying magic that he forgot the world existed. Replaying that moment puts a grin on his face, until he runs into familiar faces, and him and Katia spiral into full-on embarrassment as their hand-holding betrays them, so they hurry along trying to act like nothing's going on. Merchants spot Katia and Hermes, swarm up to them, and start thanking her loud and proud right there in public. People swear that before Katia ever set foot on the way to the capital, she swooped in and helped them escape a brutal disaster tied to a lying supplier, right when everything was on the verge of going bankrupt. Hermes is stunned because it hits him fast. Katia is changing people's lives without even bragging, and when she tries to brush it off like, "I'm just doing my duty as a noble," the merchant fires back that hardly any nobles would ever bother with a simple store like theirs. Right after that, she spots them holding hands and blurts out, "So, are you two on some kind of secret date?" Katia's panic hits instantly. She scrambles to cover it up, insisting she's just showing the city to her new assistant, while the merchant watches the whole mess and laughs quietly under his breath. A fancy merchant beckons Katia and Hermes to her jewelry shop, where nobles shop in style, and Katia hesitates, a little awkward, but she still nods and agrees. Hermes admits he barely knows a thing about jewelry, and it shocks Katia. She thought every noble was obsessed with stuff like that, so she laughs and says, "Yeah, I don't get jewelry, but I'm all in on fashion and I love dressing sharp." What? Katia tells Hermes, straight-faced but hurting, that no matter how much she loves fashion, she never felt it was worth dressing up for someone, and then she opens up about her poor ex-fiancé, saying that no matter what she did. Hermes falls silent, struck by her sincerity, because he'll never truly get to see her. Herm says he's always been drawn to beautiful things, and that's exactly why magic hooked him in the first place. It felt beautiful to his eyes. Then he adds, people are the same way. And if he had the chance to watch someone already stunning turn downright irresistible, he'd be all for it. So when he says he'd love to see Katia wearing one of the store's jewels, she freezes in shock, cheeks burning, while Herm's comment leaves her mortified, twisting embarrassment tight in her chest. The saleswoman clocks their mood and grins, teasing them that things are heating up, then blesses the couple with a bright wish for happiness. With cheeks burning and panic in his eyes, Caddy bursts in and steamrolls right through everything. Yanking Herm out of the store in a panic, he blurts, "It's not what it looks like." Later that night, she's still simmering with frustration, shouting that she can't even believe what just happened, while Keisha keeps fuming, irritated, embarrassed, and visibly rattled. Wondering how Herm can spit out that awkward stuff so calmly in public, like when he said he wanted to see her even more beautiful, she drops her face into the pillow and blushes hard. Later, she pulls Layla aside and discovers the news. There's a full celebration planned in her honor for delivering that artifact to the royal family. Keisha begged for your help picking the perfect dress for the party, swearing she wanted to look absolutely stunning. She shocks Layla by suddenly caring about her looks, something she never bothered with before, and when Layla realizes it, she eagerly agrees to help. And Keisha drops a new idea. She points to a store they can hit to pick out an accessory that matches perfectly. The celebration day finally hits, and a bunch of nobles pack the hall. Hermes takes it all in, stunned by how many big shots showed up. He keeps thinking about how he's only here as Keisha's companion, still not sure he's really the best fit, even though everyone pushed him into the role. Caddy storms into the party in a stunning, elegant dress, turning heads the moment she steps inside. Leaving Hermes utterly stunned by her beauty. Her mere presence hijacks the whole room, and suddenly it feels like a huge moment between them has just exploded. Keisha shyly asks, all nerves, how she looks in the dress, and when Hermes sees her, he freezes, stunned speechless by how beautiful she is. He finally grabs her hand, and even while he scrambles for the right words, all he can manage is a heartfelt, "You're incredibly beautiful." What? Kadia's eyes widen in shock, and embarrassment hits so hard she can barely even move or speak. At the party, everyone suddenly can't stop talking about Kadia, her stunning beauty, her perfect manners, and even how far she's come with magic. Eldridge's name hits the air, and within seconds everyone's whispering that she blasted him away with lineage magic. Then Hermes realizes the whole crowd's eyes are locked on her. Lord Jurgen turns to Hermes and throws his gratitude at him, because Hermes helped Keisha smash through her magic troubles. Hermes shoots back with a humble smile, saying he only handed her the chance, nothing more. Jurgen nods, satisfied to the core, and confirms he made the right call by trusting him. Hermes demands to know why Lord Jurgen trusted him with no clear guarantees. Jurgen shoots back that besides the fact Hermes might have ties to the Fenribird house, the real reason was simple. He trusted Keisha with his whole heart, and even Hermes proved he felt the same, backing her without a shred of doubt. Jurgen leans in and drops the bombshell. He thinks he knows exactly who Hermes' master is, because only one person could have unleashed magic that wild. Jurgen tells Hermes that his late wife somehow linked up with this mysterious woman, then he quickly reassures him. No one else seems to have noticed the connection between where the magic started and her. Hermes snaps in shock when it hits him. Kadia's mom might be the missing piece behind the mystery of his magic. Jurgen tells him to find Keisha, and Hermes drifts off deep in thought, because he can tell right away that Jurgen isn't some ordinary guy, the kind who can read all that just from a few words. As he strides forward, a butler booms his name right outside Karsha. Hermes spots Keisha getting cornered by Karl von Hartnett, a count from the West, who arrives with one offer, marriage, swearing he heard Keisha beat her magical limits. Keisha tries to turn him down politely, but he won't budge unless she meets his son, and Hermes hovers on edge, watching every move. Keisha cuts in with steel in her voice. She says her deal with the second prince collapsed last month, and then she urges Count Hartnett to rethink his proposal. The Count shrugs off her plea, lavishes praise on Keisha's brains and skill, and snaps at the prince for letting go of someone that priceless, while Hermes just stands there silent until the Count's stubborn insistence starts to get on his nerves. Just when the talk is heating up, the second prince suddenly barges in with a deadly stare and an intimidating aura that shuts everyone up. He demands to know who was talking about him, making it crystal clear he'll confront anyone who mentioned his name, and the second Hermes sees that imposing guy, he instantly clocks him, the kingdom's second prince, Kadia's former fiancé, and worst of all, the man directly behind Hermes' own expulsion. The shock hits Hermes' face like a punch as the memory snaps into place. He knows exactly who signed the order for the banishment. Hermes locks eyes with the second prince right at the base of the hall's staircase. In the air, tension clings like smoke, and Hermes spots the prince, the very reason he got thrown out. In the thick electric tension, a brand new figure steps into the spotlight, Sarah, right beside the prince. Kadia jolts with shock, and right away she realizes who it is. The second prince suddenly shows up in the hall, and the whole place snaps to attention. Hermes freezes in shock as the guests start grilling the prince about why he's here, and tension rockets the moment this unexpected face arrives. Hermes clocks Aster instantly, Keisha's old ex-fiancé, the very guy who got her banished years back. He starts questioning why he's even at a party celebrating Kadia's wins, but right then Kadia locks eyes with Sarah, challenges her with a hard stare, and Sarah blurts her move before he can get a word out, leaving him stunned. Prince Aster, dripping with arrogance, snaps that Katia is useless and then marches straight up to Count Hartnett, calling his marriage proposal an insult to his authority. Hartnett looks terrified and scrambles to defend himself, claiming he only heard rumors. The store slams the excuse aside, brushes off everyone at the party, even though it's held in honor of his ex-fiancée. And then Prince Astor turns on Karl von Hartnett, accusing him of treason as his words and actions scream rebellion. Astor steps up in front of everyone and calls him a criminal, then straight up says he only showed up at that party to wipe out the wrong idea. Karl panics, pleads for forgiveness and scrambles to defend himself, insisting it's all a misunderstanding, while the guards grab him and pin him down in front of everyone. Prince Aster sneered at Keisha's wins, claiming she'd let the spotlight and recent fame get to her head. Then he dragged up everything, from how she mastered her magical flaw to how she even clawed back that rare artifact. He rips into her achievements, brands them as lies, and even taunts her about losing her place as his fiancée. So when Katia tries to shut it down with a steady denial, Aster barges in and takes control, cutting her off with sheer authority. Aster detonates with rage, screaming that Katia is twisting every conversation to steal her advantage. Before anyone even gets a chance to talk, he shuts it down publicly, straight up saying he'll never marry her again. Katia snaps back the rejection with crystal-clear certainty, and then Astor sneers that he's already found someone else, shutting the whole thing down with pure disdain and total indifference. Aster barges into the crowd and unveils his brand-new fiancée, Sarah von Hartmann, the noble's daughter, for everyone to see. The whole intro feels icy and calculated. Sarah steps into Keisha's old spot with a stone-cold face, and Astor just goes overboard, loudly praising her beauty, her shyness, and her magic like she's way above Keisha, even while he completely brushes past the fact that she's from a lower-status family. Keisha's jaw drops as she blurts out that she knew Sarah back in school, and the moment they lock eyes again, the air turns razor-sharp as their buried past starts clawing its way to the surface. Katia clocks Sarah and instantly realizes she's totally not ready for the crushing weight of being royalty's fiancée. Keisha steps in and challenges her straight up. Do you've got the courage to handle everything this role demands? Keisha's iron resolve shuts Sarah completely silent. And his Aster snaps in, rage spilling out, trying to shut the whole conversation down. Aster tries to flip the whole situation and snaps that Keisha was jealous and downright cruel to Sarah back then, saying she used her power at school to intimidate her. Everyone in the room gets hit with shock when the accusation drops, who start doubting Katia the moment they hear the prince's words. Astor stands before everyone and declares, loud and fearless, that his words are the truth, and corners Sarah to force her to back up his accusations. Meanwhile, Keisha realizes that no matter how hard they fight back, nobody in that room would ever dare question a prince's word. Crushed by the pressure, Sarah hesitated, then still confirmed the prince's words, even though her uncertainty showed plain as day. Right then, Astor seized the moment, publicly accusing Keisha and claiming her real face had finally surfaced, and Prince Astor turned to the audience with smooth, ruthless manipulation, saying that a defective girl couldn't awaken magic for real, then hinting Katia must have cheated, shook the crowd into doubting her every achievement, and Hermes just watched how effortlessly everyone swallowed the prince's lies. Suddenly, a colossal monster rips into the grounds of the assembly hall, and every guest freezes in pure shock. One of the guards tries to shut it down, but this thing is way too strong, and it's an instant danger to the whole venue. Hermes and Keisha burst into a run the moment they hear the chaos, and right there, they face a knight staring down an enormous, terrifying wyvern. The monster's arrival cranks the panic up even higher, and with the wyvern menacing everyone in sight, Keisha snaps at Hermes to get ready for battle. As the soldiers fall back, Prince Aster goes after Sarah, demanding she prove she's worth it, by blasting her magic for the whole crowd to witness. Katia suddenly gets it. This monster's big reveal was orchestrated, and the timing is way too perfect. Prince Aster shows up right on cue, steps forward, and takes charge of the defense like he planned it. As it all clicks into place like a master plot, Sarah tightens her grip and prepares to strike. Sarah snaps her lineage magic to life in front of the entire crowd. She calls up a brutal healing spell, and a warm glow floods the hall, snapping the wounded back to health in an instant and leaving the whole place stunned by her raw power. Sarah keeps blasting through her magical chant, powering the spell forward with every beat. She just revealed she's got a double knack for lineage magic, and when everyone stares in stunned silence, she fires off an even deadlier spell, proving her power is more than anyone could have imagined. Even the prince's jaw drops. Sarah finishes her magic and seals the wyvern inside a crushing magical prison, and though it thrashes and fights, it can't break free. A shadowy stranger steps in like he owns the moment, then loudly praises her hard-won victory. And he stepped up, taking charge of everything left to handle. Then the prince raised his hands and started chanting, grand magic bursting into flames and holy sacred symbols. His spell tore open the air, summoning an aura of celestial judgment. The prince slams his most powerful lineage magic, Ahura Mazda, into the world, and the whole area gets swallowed by raw, earth-shaking energy. His confident stare and cocky grin screamed, "I've already won," like he was itching to unleash his absolute power and judge everyone in his path. With holy flames roaring, the prince smashes his final strike and turns the monster to ash without mercy, then shoots it a cold stare and says its fate was locked the second it dared step into his way. The monster gets swallowed by roaring flames, screaming like it's being torn apart, until it vanishes completely. That burst of power hits like a thunderclap, so brutal everyone instinctively throws up their arms to shield themselves. Then a crushing wave of energy tears through the hall. The monster's body gets hurled to the ground, blackened and finally crushed, smoke still cloying up the air while the whole group goes silent, staring at the battle's end like they can't breathe, stunned by the sheer power they just witnessed. Prince Astor, swallowed by the roar of the crowd, seizes the chaos to puff himself up and proclaim his power to the whole country. Then, with zero doubt, he announces his engagement to Sarah von Hartmann and insists she'll be the very cornerstone of his reign. The crowd erupts, cheering Astor like he's a national hero, and when his name gets praised, Hermes watches with a razor-sharp stare. Because here, he says, everything is decided by hereditary magic's raw power. Astor doesn't rule on justice, he rules on force, and no matter how hard they clash, the nobles will always stay loyal to that unfair system. Hermes, replaying every grim thing he's seen, clings to his master's lesson about that rotten noble class, smug, spoiled, and bragging over what they were handed. And now it all clicks. The capital looks grand, decked in prestige and power, but it's actually rotting from laziness, arrogance, and a fake belief that they earned it. And with contempt burning in his chest, Hermes stares the truth down, knowing the whole system is warped at its core. As the crowd surges in, every eye snaps to Sarah. Then the praise erupts, calling her beautiful and graceful, a saint straight out of legends, a true noble lady and the kingdom's savior. Trapped under all that adoration, Sarah freezes, not knowing what to say next. Amid the roaring cheers, Katia just stands there, silent and taut, her expression turning cold and dark, while everyone lifts Sarah up as the new saint. Yet Katia's eyes scream jealousy and burn with frustration, like she can't stand being drowned out by all that attention. The prince stares at Sarah in tense silence, then demands to know why she won't answer the crowd's roaring cheers, telling her to lift her head like she owns the moment. But she doesn't move at all, her eyes stay hidden, and her face sits utterly blank. Suddenly, a blinding flash erupts, and the prince snaps to a stop, frozen solid, his eyes bulging as a cold dread crawls down his spine and he's left tight, tense, and on edge. The prince snaps with a sudden, bone-deep chill, and he notices a young man standing there, staring at him calmly from far away. The second I saw him, déjà vu hit me like a punch. I knew I'd seen that look before, and it instantly made me suspicious, uneasy. The prince demanded to know who this guy was and why he was staring at him like that. The young man answered straight up, "I'm Hermes, Katia-sama's servant." The prince froze, totally thrown off by the name. The prince erupts in laughter the second he realizes Hermes is from the Flembert family, then gleefully tears into him for getting swept up by Keisha, calling the whole thing a joke and a total waste. While Hermes stays cool, sitting there silently, thinking nothing out loud. He still remembers the prince tossing him into exile like trash, too worthless to even look at. And in that prince's eyes, Hermes was just something meant to be thrown away. The prince explodes in fury, blasting Hermes and Keisha for teaming up out of spite, and for selling their souls just to claw their way to power. Then he drags up Hermes' exile and the shattered engagement with Keisha as his final proof. He insists they faked the monster attack just to chase fame, but Katia shuts him down instantly, calling his story pure nonsense and blasting him as the one responsible. The crowd whips against the prince, hurling accusations that he's a liar and roaring for respect, because they're done trusting him. Enraged to the core, the prince orders the guards to seize Hermes and Keisha. Then, just as the soldiers start closing in, Hermes steps forward and shocks everyone. Before anyone can move, a booming voice cuts in, "Wait," and the prince snaps his head around, recognizing the figure as he mutters, "You are." Keisha's father, Jurgen von Trachia, crashes in at the worst possible moment and slams the arrest order to a stop. He reminds everyone, plain as day, the law bans arrest without formal charges, and the prince snaps that he's once again hiding his daughter's crimes by abusing his power as Minister of Justice. Jurgen stays ice calm and fires back that the law isn't something you interpret. Jurgen doesn't give the prince an inch. He makes it crystal clear he's not playing favorites with his daughter, then reminds him he also okayed the release of another noble who'd just been arrested. The prince backs away, snaps that he's lost interest, and tells them they're lucky for now. Then he whips around and barks at Sarah to come with him. She hesitates for a heartbeat, then follows. While the crowd mutters that the prince and Sarah are frauds, Hermes pushes forward to shut them down, until Katia grabs his arm and stops him cold. Then out of nowhere, a brand new figure steps into the scene. Hermes' older brother just watches it all play out with a calm little smile, praising Hermes for the show and asking if he really thought it through, while Hermes can't bring himself to say a word. Hermes rips into the prince, saying he twisted the truth for himself and smeared Cadia with wild, made-up lies, and the worst part, nobody even dares to question it, even when it clearly doesn't add up. Hermes says that deadly silence exposes something rotten at the heart of the kingdom. His brother snaps back coldly, "That's just how this kingdom runs. If your magic bloodline is stronger, you sit on top, and it's always been the reason this nation thrives." Hermes' brother smirks and coldly declares that the prince holds unbeatable power, and anyone who dares to oppose him is just pathetic. Then he leans in and warns Hermes that one day, he'll finally see who the true threat to the kingdom really is. Hermes clenches his fist in stunned silence, and the moment night spills over the garden, his face hardens with seriousness. Hermes keeps replaying the prince's insane magic in his head, remembering how effortlessly he wiped out a wyvern, and yet he can't help thinking this isn't finesse, it's just raw power. He then apologizes to Keisha for the whole mess, but Keisha just brushes it off and reassures him. Hermes still has to admit it, his magic just can't stack up to the prince's bloodline power, the kind that's powered straight by raw, brute magical output. Just like the stuff he'd spotted from Count Eldridge. Hermes tells Keisha, "I can't beat the prince with my power right now, but I've got something else, primordial inscription magic." He grins and adds that this power grows stronger without any ceiling, the more he carves inscriptions and wields bloodline magics. This isn't about brute strength anymore, it's about forging something bigger. Hermes clenches his resolve and vows he'll beat Prince Aster and shut him down, but deep down he knows he still has unfinished business with his brother, who's still blindly riding alongside the prince. Hermes is ready for whatever comes next, and Keisha lights up with a smile as she thanks him for his resolve, because they're about to prove their strength side by side. With steel in her voice, she vows they'll show everyone that their power is real and absolutely not something to underestimate. Hermes shoots back a solid, unwavering yes. To claw back Keisha's shattered name, she and Hermes hit the road across every region, taking brutal jobs even other noble houses refuse, hunting monsters that laugh in the face of easy, and pushing into dusty, unclaimed dungeons. Because they're convinced that honest grind, day after day, will flip the crowd's opinion, and they're sticking with it, no quit, just patience and pure determination. One day, after a brand new plea for help hit, Hermes and Keisha tore off toward a remote village. As they pull up, they spot someone sprinting like their life depends on it. Then you realize something urgent is waiting for them just around the corner. A young girl gets slammed by a vicious pack of wolves, and it turns into a fight for her life in seconds. One lunges and knocks her down as the others surge in, snarling and poised to strike. She lets out a terrified scream with absolutely no way to fight back. Keisha bursts in at the last second, unleashing her bloodline magic, Underworld of Salvation, Sotra Trivia, and a brutal blast rips through the wolves, rescuing the girl in the nick of time. Girl, she cranes her head up, eyes wide with disbelief as the rescue hits her out of nowhere. Keisha strides up to the girl and asks if she's okay, and the kid only nods, still trembling from what just happened. Soon after, her grandfather storms in, shaking with emotion. He drops into a deep bow and pours out his gratitude for saving his granddaughter's life, completely at a loss for how to repay a debt this massive. Hermes and Keisha double-checked the report, and it was real. Monsters had actually stumbled into this cut-off village. Keisha starts to explain. It's a catastrophic dungeon overflow. When the monsters inside start breeding past the limit, they burst out into the outside world and start hunting humans. And it's the kind of disaster that proper dungeon management is supposed to prevent. Cadia snaps that someone must have left the dungeon alone, which is why it overflowed, and she fires back, asking whether the village ever reported it. The village chief steps up and confirms it, right there no doubt. 2 weeks ago, a villager stumbled on what looked like a dungeon in the nearby forest, and they begged Viscount Norcha for help, their lord, but no one ever showed up, not with any proper military force. The village lay defenseless as the village chief handed over Viscount Norcha's letters, yet every time they begged for help, the message stayed the same. For now, handle it yourselves. And when Keisha read those words, you could see it hit her hard, pure upset. She can't believe he brushed the whole crisis off, especially after people got hurt. Then Hermes snaps her attention, calling out as he clocks her reaction. Cadia demands to know where Viscount Norch is, and the village chief snaps back that he's probably stationed at a brand new frontline base just outside town. So Cadia steels herself and pushes on. Keisha steels herself and decides to face him head-on. She turns to Hermes and says, "Let's go." Together, Hermes and Keisha push through the forest, and Hermes suddenly slams on the brakes, his instincts screaming that something eerie is lurking right nearby. He snaps his gaze around, gripping the moment like he's sure something vanished right in front of him. Tucked deep in the bushes, a mysterious figure stares at them in total silence, like it's waiting to strike. The crew finally reaches the supply station, then the shock hits them like a punch. Everything's wiped out, no weapons, no supplies, nothing. The girl stares around in shock, trying to figure out how it all vanished while the monster's subjugation is still far from over, and then it hits them. Something is terribly, horribly wrong. The blonde kid senses a sneaky presence, blasts the bushes with an explosive spell, and exposes the man who's been tailing them the whole time. After snatching him effortlessly, he just calmly apologizes, and then explains that the man had been watching them for ages. The captured man snaps shut, spits out heretics with pure contempt and refuses to talk, while the girl keeps her cool and tries to interrogate him anyway. But when she spots his defiance, her face hardens, cold smile and all, and she readies to use force as the blonde boy nods. Then right after that, the prisoner's screams tear through the air. Shaking with terror, the prisoner spills everything. He didn't act on his own, he followed Viscount Norcia's orders. And his plan was cruel. Sabotage Lady Trachea and leave her to face those monsters alone, then swoop in later to steal the credit. The girl's jaw drops when it clicks. She was never being helped at all. It was a trap set to ruin her name on purpose. Rage sparked in the man's eyes as he screamed it was all their fault. Then the truth spilled out. Viscount Norch had been hunting a bride for his son, and once rumors pointed to the Trachea family's daughter, he showed up himself at a celebration just to confirm it with his own eyes. The protagonists are left reeling when they realize Norcia was pulled into this from the very start, even as the villagers' lives were still hanging by a thread. The boy studies everything, clocking every detail, and then lands on one terrifying conclusion: the Viscount. Raging over his failed plan to force the marriage he wanted for his son, he deliberately unleashed the Great Overflow to scorch Kadia's name and reputation. Fury blazing, she snaps at him, accusing him of forgetting the noble's most sacred duty, protecting the people. Suddenly, the whole ground starts pounding with violent shakes. 3 of them snap to attention, feeling the tremor hit their bones. Then the sky seems to split, monsters surge out in a roaring wave. Ogres, horned brutes, and giant wolves, all sprinting straight at them like a nightmare with teeth. A brutal horde of monsters surges toward the village, and the girl stiffens with resolve, eyes blazing as she steps forward, snaps that she'll take the fight, and orders the captured man to rush a message to the Viscount. Because if those monsters fall, it's his turn next. The boy shouts at the top of his lungs, begging Kadia to stop, but she barrels forward toward the monsters, no hesitation at all. As she barrels ahead, her mother's memories slam back into her head. She wasn't a top-tier mage, but her power ran way deeper than magic ever could. It's over, Keisha clenches her resolve, pulling courage straight from that memory. Her mother once stood her ground against a monstrous horde during the Great Overflow, and even with no real magic to speak of, she never once ran. She fought alone until the very end, refusing to let go, right up until reinforcements finally burst in. In the end, she threw away her life to save everyone else. Her last, fearless act burned into Kadia's heart forever. Keisha still hears her mother's final words, become a splendid aristocrat burning like fire in her chest. She steps forward with zero fear, staring down the charging horde of monsters like it's personal. Keisha rips the silence apart with a blood-curdling scream, rage and sorrow detonating as dark energy erupts around her. Rage surging through her, she screams at the monsters, blaming them for every shred of pain and destruction they've brought. Next, Keisha lunges into the monsters with brutal fury, slicing them down one after another, refusing to stop until she's convinced that if she doesn't get stronger, she'll never be able to shield others the way her mother did. So as the fight rages harder, her resolve turns into steel. Keisha hammers through wave after wave, dropping monster after monster, exhausted but still refusing to break, pushing ahead even while she's outnumbered. With the endless horde closing in from every side, she clenches her fists and swears, no matter what hits her, she will keep moving. In the blackness, skeletal warriors claws their way into view, and Kadia's eyes flare with pure rage and iron resolve. Her magic surges out of control as she screams her vow to wipe every single one of them out without mercy. Herm lunges in and catches Keisha the moment her strength starts to crumble. He clamps his arms around her and snaps that she can't keep fighting this way. Her magic is chewing her up from the inside. Keisha, shaking and drained, stares at him in stunned silence as his warning finally lands. Herm leans in close to Kadia, gently grounding her and reminding her she's got backup. Because when her exhaustion hits, his calm voice slices right through it and he tells her, I'm right here with you. With his resolve blazing, he steps forward and starts casting his own spell, ready to battle right beside her. Herm starts chanting an ancient spell and his voice hits like thunder, steady, powerful, unstoppable. Keisha locks in on the incantation and her eyes flare wide with shock. As that magic circle blooms behind them, Herm snaps the spell shut, his horrifying technique, Underworld of Salvation, Sotra Trivia asterisk, and a brutal wave of energy crashes down, swallowing the attacking monsters whole. Kadia's jaw drops as she watches her magic come back to life in someone else's hands. Herm admits he's nailed the remake, but right now it's only skin deep. Even so, this spell's power punches straight through noble tier magic. His words calm her down as he tells her skills are still leveling up. And Keisha, all flustered and stunned, realizes just how far he's grown. Herm shoots Katia a confident grin and thrusts out his hand, swearing they'll conquer this together like it's inevitable. She meets his eyes, warmth flooding back in, and her determination snaps right back into place. And grips his hand with a solid nod, ready to take on whatever's coming next right there at his side. Viscount Norkia glares with unshakable arrogance, certain Chia is about to drop to his knees and beg for help. Rage ripping through him, he storms the girl, accusing her of using forbidden magic to hoodwink them. Then demands she be destroyed for the kingdom's sake, and his allies back him up, calling her a fraud and a ticking threat. Viscount Norch beams and declares that Prince Aster is sending reinforcements because of the massive overflow, insisting Aster will be the next king, and swears everything's in hand, because he'd never let a disaster hit without a counterplan. Meanwhile, his subordinates hiss that he'd set the reinforcements in motion from the very beginning, just waiting for Keisha to collapse. The Viscount booms, sure the Treccia family's name is about to crumble and that the prince will finally reward him. But then Keisha storms in, defiant as ever, and throws out a sarcastic apology like, "Guess I didn't live up to your dreams." What? She leans in, grips the moment, and demands, if she wins, what happens next and who's going to eat the blame for throwing her away. Keisha faces the Viscount with nerve, pointing at a battlefield littered with dead monsters, and the moment she does, his whole body locks up, frozen in disbelief. Herm steps in and says, before you call it impossible, look with your own eyes. If you still won't believe, then you're only proving how blind you truly are. Keisha squares up to the Viscount with pure grit, making it crystal clear she's not backing down, no more excuses, no more running from her duties. She vows to keep showing how strong she really is, fighting to protect the kingdom's people, determined to reveal her true self to everyone. Once the monster crumples, the village finally gets its peace back. Keisha and Herm are cheered and thanked by everyone, while the Viscount slinks away burning with rage, humiliated to the bone. And just like that, the mission ends, safe village secured and respect earned the hard way, because now word spreads about what Keisha kept hidden, the great overflow. Rumors ripped through the nobles like wildfire, some swore she was wielding forbidden magic, while others finally blinked and admitted her talent, pushing to have her position reconsidered. Bit by bit, the crowd turns, opinions flip, and suddenly everyone starts rooting for her. Herm hit the market, hunting for what she needed. He spots a little girl sprawled on the ground, sobbing through the pain, and when he rushes over to help, he locks eyes with a hooded woman healing her wound with magic, and that shiver of wonder hits him instantly. The girls stare in shock as their wound is suddenly gone, and they practically bounce with excitement, asking if that hooded woman is a mage. She flashes a smile and leans in, telling them, keep this between us, don't tell a soul. The girls burst into joyful thanks as the mysterious woman slips away in eerie silence. Rounding the corner, Herm suddenly crashes into a hooded woman, both of them jolting in shock. Then, the moment he sees her face up close, it clicks instantly. That's Sarah von Hartmann, and she reeks of importance. Sarah tenses the second she spots him, her nervous expression screaming before she can even speak. She murmurs he's Keisha's servant, and the air snaps tight. Then the past bursts in like flashbulbs, proving this isn't some casual run-in. Nervously, Sarah blurts out that she's Prince Astor's fiancée, then quickly admits it's just a ceremonial role with zero real power, and she can't stop worrying she'll be judged for it. But Herm reassures her with a calm, steady voice that he's got zero intention of hurting her, leaving her stunned, then suddenly relieved. Nervous as hell, Sarah presses Herm, so you're gonna kidnap me to talk to Prince Aster. And he shuts that down calmly, insisting his whole crew just wants the prince to admit where he messed up and reveals that Katia is terrified for her. Sarah's stunned to hear it, while Herm paints Katia as a gentle, modest girl, not someone who shows off her power. Keisha snaps back to the past and remembers how Sarah froze in shock back then, and with her usual personality, she probably never had the power to stand up to the prince. Even so, she's still praying Sarah won't blame herself for this, because when Sarah hears it, her heart gets wrecked by emotion. She can't even process how kind Keisha is, and then she breaks down and sobs. Keisha finally understood one thing: she'd cared for her all along, even when she thought she was hated. So Herm swallowed her pride, apologized for the mix-up, and urges them to slip somewhere quieter so they can keep talking. And together they wander off until they find a peaceful spot under a tree. Sarah looks back on her school days and tells you how everyone pushed her aside at first, because she was stuck with the lowest social standing. Even with 2 bloodline magics in her hands, people couldn't stand her. Yet Keisha stepped up with kindness and offered friendship, the kind she never forgot. Herm nods along with Sarah's plight, realizing the kingdom's rotten politics are what ripped her and Katia apart. He lays it out plain: her betrayal of Katia can't be denied, though he gets why she did it, and then he makes one thing crystal clear. No matter what, both women still matter to each other more than ever. And somehow in this rotten world, people like her still manage to change everything. Herm realizes it right there in the kingdom. Everyone mindlessly obeys the power, and the moment you doubt or resist, they act like you're the problem. And he only learned that brutal lesson the hard way after arriving in the capital. But then he blurts out that Katia's no ordinary case. She's the real exception, pure and noble, a rare light in a place so corrupt it shouldn't even exist. Sarah finally admits she still has huge respect for Katia, praising the way she refuses to break her convictions. Herm just nods along, clearly getting it, and vows to deliver those heartfelt feelings to Katia. Then, after she's honest with him, he opens up with personal advice, showing real empathy and full respect. Herm tells Sarah she's totally underestimating what the human heart can do. Listen to what he says next. She shoves her feelings aside like they don't matter, like they don't even belong to her. And when he gently calls out how indifferent she seems to what happens to her, his words hit hard, leaving her stunned, then quietly forced to think. Herm insists that somewhere deep inside her, a real emotion must live, something no one can shove onto her, but that springs straight from her own heart. And Sarah, stunned to her core, starts connecting the dots, because that feeling was always hers. Herm tells her to trust that gut feeling, because if she follows it, things could end up way better than she ever expected, and it sparks hope in her chest. Herm tells Sarah he's sure she can get even more charming, and the moment the words hit, she's totally flustered, like she doesn't know whether to laugh, blush, or run. Seeing her face, he blurts out an apology on the spot, panic written all over him, saying he never meant to flatter her like that, and that it probably came out sounding like flirting. Embarrassed, Sarah barely squeaks out, "I'm fine," and both of them break into an awkward blush. But the moment Herm starts to slip away, Sarah grabs him and cuts him off before he can leave, nerves and all. With her heart thundering, she blurts out, "What would you do if I followed my feelings, even if they clash with everything I'm supposed to be?" Herm just looks at her, calm as ever, and smiles softly like it's the most obvious truth in the world, because she already feels the answer deep down. Herm leans in with a gentle grin and tells Sarah, "If the day ever comes when we have to meet face to face, we'll do it with honor, fair and true, and we'll let our feelings power the magic." He says that's what magic is really for, to pour the heart's emotions into the world. Sarah just watches him in silence, stunned, because somehow his words always hit her deeper than she expects. A few days later, rumors hit the capital like wildfire. Nobles were whispering that the Tracia girl had wiped out yet another dungeon. Even other nobles couldn't survive, and they wouldn't stop talking about her young servant, praising his skills, and it only got louder from there. One of them jerks back in shock and blurts out, "I know you." And it turns out to be Hermes, a past Flimbreed member, once a child prodigy. Princess Dor gets hit with shocking news about the young lady of the Tracia family. Everyone's raving about her accomplishments, and all the nobles in the capital can't stop staring. While the report played, his eyes sharpened with thought, and he dropped the name of his servant, Hermes. A 5-year-old prodigy unleashes jaw-dropping magic, so intense his opponent has no choice but to throw in the towel. And even the teachers can't believe it as he casually masters complex spells. Since he was a kid, everyone has been convinced he's born to become the greatest mage in the whole kingdom. Princess Dor had everyone singing his praises. His genius, talent, and sharp mind were hailed as a miracle, like a divine blessing sent straight from the heavens. Sure that nobody could ever top him, he swore frustration would never touch his life, until the day he finally met that one person. On a trip, Aster suddenly spots a raging fire burning far off in the distance. When he gets closer, he freezes. Those flames already swallowed the whole house. A desperate man screams for help, begging that his daughter is still trapped inside, and Aster stands there, watching in deadly silence. Aster spots a boy trudging up to the river and whipping out a magic circle with his own hands, and her mind immediately screams, "No way, how could someone with zero lineage magic pull this off?" However, a kid is about to pull off the kind of stunt that makes your brain scream. He lifts the river water with his bare hands, turning it into birds that soar above the fire, pecking out every last flame. Everyone's left staring, stunned by the sheer power. Water pours from above like a storm, crashing over the house and freeing the girl trapped inside. Swamped with pure emotion, the father sprints forward and smothers his son in a tight embrace for pulling off that miracle, while Astor stands frozen in silence, staring in disbelief at what the young Hermes just proved. That night, Astor bolts upright, drenched in sweat and gasping, his mind snapping back to the blazing fire. He finally realizes he's never seen magic as beautiful and crushingly powerful as Hermes. And even though they're the same age, Aster feels that sharp sting of frustration he can't beat him. So fueled by pure rage, Aster starts training harder than ever before. For the first time in his life, he finally digs in and pushes himself to catch Hermes. But the harder he trains, the faster that gap grows, like Hermes is slipping away on air. He can't stop wondering if he should finally admit Hermes is the more gifted one, but he clamps down on the thought. He refuses to face the truth. Astor shoves his pain under arrogance like it's armor, until he hears that Hermes has zero lineage magic, and everything in him snaps. He forces out a laugh to mock it all, but deep inside he knows the truth would obliterate him. and envy and pride are eating him alive. Astor roars that he's the strongest in the kingdom and the real one God picked, while refusing to bow to anyone above him. He slams the sentence down and orders Hermes von Flimbreed exiled. Keisha, a young woman with a battle-worn seriousness in her eyes, strides up to a massive mansion like she's coming for answers. Just as she steps closer, a hooded girl pops out of the shadows, bows with respect, and calls her Lady Keisha. Katie locks eyes with a blonde woman, then super politely apologizes for the surprise visit and asks if she has a moment to talk. Keisha and Sarah slip beneath the moonlight and meet there, right in the glow. Sarah finally tells everyone Princess Store said she could see her, but the catch was brutal. She couldn't show up by herself. Keisha feels a massive surge of magic nearby, and her gut tells her the mage traveling with Sarah isn't just there to escort her. Katia can feel this meeting screaming trap, but she forces herself to stay, while Sarah breaks down with real, sincere regret. Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she begged for forgiveness, pouring out a heartfelt apology. Surprising Keisha with her brutal honesty, Tara finally spills the truth during the celebration, confessing she treated Katie horribly, and then drops to her knees begging for forgiveness. Katia stays cool and collected, tells her, "Don't worry, I already know," then admits Hermes filled her in and that she gets why it hurts so much. Sarah is devastated. She never told Katia about her arranged marriage to the prince, but Katia pulls her close and reassures her, "I get it." Then she admits she doesn't care about clinging to the royal fiancé spot anymore, and she makes it clear Sarah isn't chasing power at all. She's acting from the heart, and that's exactly what maturity and empathy look like. Keisha locks eyes with Sarah and shoots back, asking if she really means it. Does she truly want to be the prince's fiancé? She shuts down the whole political mess and insists she just wants Sarah's real feelings, because that's exactly why she showed up. Sarah's emotions crash over her. She's torn, panicking, and struggling to find the right words before she finally can reply. A wild magical blast suddenly tears into a nearby tower, and Keisha feels the danger closing in. He wastes no time and slams a defensive spell into the air, shielding them both in one move. Sarah gets slammed by a sudden magic blast, bloodied and broken in plain sight right before Keisha's eyes. In sheer shock, Keisha scrambles to react as her friend crumples and drops to the ground. Blood poured out and he dropped limp, totally unconscious. Keisha races to Sarah in total panic, screams her name and begs her to hang on. Then she exhales, because Sarah's still breathing, and that's when she snaps to it. The wound is serious, and if she doesn't move fast, Sarah's life could slip away in an instant. Katia snaps to the enemy's presence, spots the exact magic behind the strike, and locks her eyes in. She's figured it out. The magic bullet archer is the one hunting her. Keisha can't stop thinking about it. Why did the attack zero in on Sarah instead of her? And she scrambles in to help her anyway. People nearby freeze in terror when they spot the blood and the battered body, and the man insists he saw everything. So the whole crowd surges in, drawn to the terrifying scene. A man blasts Keisha, claiming she used magic to attack Sarah and then shoved her off the platform. Shocked, she lunges to protect herself, swearing up and down that it wasn't her spell. And it's all just a setup to pin the blame on her. The magic bullet archer strides in with a chilling smirk, then pins Katia with a furious claim, telling everyone she's lying. He insists everyone witnessed what really happened, that she deliberately attacked Sarah, hiding behind a fake "I'm acting on orders" excuse. So he grabs her and demands she surrender, locking the whole scene into a perfect trap meant to nail her for it. Rage-burning, Katia barrels toward the archer, snarls that he's in for what's coming, and orders him to brace himself. He cackles like it's a joke, rubbing it in that he did all of this only for her, then drops the truth, pure hatred planned from the start. The archer sneers at Keisha, mocking her for playing hero after she masters her lineage magic and starts cutting down monsters. He declares Prince Aster the kingdom's real hero, and Keisha explodes in outrage, confronting him as she slams Aster for being selfish, warning that his arrogance will drag everything into ruin. The archer fires back, saying the ruin she promised never showed up. He insists the whole kingdom stands united under Prince Aster, and claims the recent disasters happened only because of her. Then, with a cold stare, he dumps every bit of blame for the chaos straight onto her shoulders. The archer points his bow at Keisha and screams that she's the real reason the kingdom keeps falling apart. He snaps that her arrogance puts everyone in danger. Then he jabs at Sarah, still wounded, and declares that Katia's blind justice is what wrecked her. Keisha reels in shock and tries to defend herself, but his manipulation turns every word she says into something that hits the wall. Keisha steps in and shuts down the other students' taunts, snapping at them like, "Leave Sarah alone." Blushing hard, Sarah shoots out an apology and confesses she's always leaned on Keisha. But no matter what she does, she can't bring herself to return the favor. Katia tells Sarah, "Your kindness helps me too, and don't worry, nothing between us is going to change." With a warm, heartfelt smile, she swears they'll stay friends no matter what anyone else throws in their way. And Sarah, still touched, bursts into a happy agreement. Keisha stared at her blood-stained hands, drowning in despair as the truth hit her. Her dearest friend was hurt because of her. Shaking, she spiraled into self-blame, convinced she was the spark that dragged chaos into the kingdom. Right after Katia gets arrested, two nobles huddle up and tear into what just went down. One is 100% sure she got wrongly accused, while the other swears Prince Aster and his crew cooked up the whole plan just to frame her. They're devastated, proving her innocence feels nearly impossible, because even the magical traces might have been secretly messed with. After Keisha gets arrested, Sarah is dragged to the palace for treatment. But everyone smells a cover-up, like they're trying to wipe out every trace of magic before anyone can prove it. Keisha's allies huddled together, plotting how to clear her name, scratching up testimonies and evidence, though they both knew the truth wouldn't come overnight. One of them trembles because she knows the prince plans to punish her the moment he catches her, before the real truth ever sees the light. Hermes panics with urgency and snaps that he'll rescue Keisha by force, right now, until his companion barges in and cuts him off. He says he gets why Hermes feels in debt to her, but he insists he's already done enough. Then he leans in and warns Hermes, if he keeps going he'll pay for it because he won't stop. The dark grip of the capital is about to swallow him whole. He lays it out, this kingdom is brutal, ruled by nobles who clutch their power like it's life itself, scared to the bone of falling, and who hide behind lineage magic to stay untouchable from commoners. Stuck in a never-ending loop, they stumble through life with arrogant blinders on, never daring to change or grow. He likens the royal capital to a blazing hell trapped inside a cage, somewhere you can barely claw your way out of. He spills that Hermes, old master, fled the city because that corrupt world finally sickened her. And then he straight up admits with raw envy that he envies her courage to walk away. The man snaps Hermes back to his real mission, and in that spark a brand new magic ignites. He warns Hermes that if he keeps meddling in court business, he'll lose his way, stumble into trouble, and end up paying the price. No room for doubt. Hermes swears he'll do anything to save Keisha. Even if he can't prove she's innocent, he'll fight tooth and nail to stop her from being executed. Hermes stares at the capital's corruption, and it finally clicks. Now he knows exactly why his master had to ditch it. He admits the place is awful, and he knows, deep down, that even his conversation partner has probably watched so many injustices that hope almost got crushed. Hermes replays Keisha and Sarah's words in his head, sees how their actions still ripple through the world, and realizes, no matter what, there are people who cling to their ideals and still choose good. With that, he doubles down on that hope. Just as long as people like them are still around, the capital won't lose its light and salvation will still come. With a fierce, unblinking stare, Hermes swears he's going to smash the birdcage, the corrupt capital holding everyone hostage. Then, fired up by what was said before, he goes after the whole system that traps and rots people, leaving his companion stunned. Hermes sees the dangers clear as day, but he still swears he'll save Keisha. Because he chooses to, and that's it, and the man in front of him grins. Saying that kind of selfish motive fits Hermes to the bone, he finally decides to trust him. Hermes wastes zero time. He's going straight for Katia, blazing with determination to save her, and his ally snaps that he has to unleash every ounce of power because there's no time for slow, ordinary moves. Without a single doubt, Hermes steels himself, accepts the call, and rockets off to rescue her. Hermes tears up to the spot where Keisha is locked away. She remembered the time she helped him back then. He vows to pay her back and swears he'll rescue her no matter what it costs. Then, in the middle of a tense debate, a man blurts. He begs Katia's father to rein in his daughter's reckless impulses, just so she doesn't spark yet another clash with Princess Store's aristocrats, until her father finally cuts the confrontation short, worn out and clearly drained. Once the visitor storms out, Keisha grills him, and he admits the guy was from the legal department, making it crystal clear this wasn't some small issue, it was full-on political landmines, leaving her worried. Keisha snaps, asking her father if wiping out monsters in other territories is stirring up trouble. Then he grins and tells her, proud as ever, that because of her, countless lives were saved. And she had no choice but to keep chasing what she knew was right, until her moves just kicked the conflict between the legal department and the aristocrats into overdrive. Keisha shuts her eyes and remembers her mother's advice, how to rise into being the kind of noble everyone looks up to. Ever since that moment, she's thrown herself into her duties, chasing what's right and living by that ideal. Yet lately, doubt is gnawing at her, making her wonder if she's really been walking the right path. Crushed by guilt and trapped by her own choices, Keisha stares at Sarah's injured body and spirals. Was everything she's done up to now truly worth it? Two guards lean in, trading whispers about Keisha's arrest, slandering her as defective. Then they snarl that she never fought back, so they're convinced she must have caved and confessed to the crime. Meanwhile, the young man hunting for her crouches in the shadows. Then his jaw drops when he realizes she let herself be captured without a fight, even though she's completely innocent. The young man springs the ambush on the guards, keeps his eyes locked on Katia, and takes them down fast before they even realize what hit them. After wiping them out, he calmly drops an apology, says he's got no grudge, and snaps right back to his rescue mission. That young man marched up to the guard and declared, loud and clear, that the Ministry of Justice had given him full permission to use whatever force he needed. Meanwhile, Keisha sits alone in her cell, silent as the grave, trapped with nothing but her thoughts. Hermes bursts into the cell where Keisha's locked up, races to apologize for the delay, and Keisha stares in shock. How did you even make it here? He calmly admits it. Those forbidden spells erased his trail, slipped him past the guards, and left them neutralized so he could finally burst in and rescue her. Herm snaps the lock open and steps into the cell, determined to haul her out of there. Keisha lowers her eyes and admits she has no plans to leave prison, guilt for every mistake weighing on her like a stone. She's convinced her own choices shattered Sarah so badly, and she calls it a selfish crime with no excuse. Hermes, stunned out of her wits, scrambles to make sense of Keisha's words and refuses to take the blame, while Keisha, utterly shaken, erupts into a scream of regret for what she's done. She swears she only made things worse, trying to snap at the prince on her own, and now she's blaming herself, claiming the kingdom started falling apart because of her, and that Hermes must stay out of her life, period. Hermes tries to argue, but Keisha's icy silence hits him hard, like she's decided to shove him away before he brings even more trouble crashing down on him. Keisha snaps out coldly that Hermes only stayed by her side because he felt he owed her, and sure, she credits his loyalty. But then she pushes him to chase what he truly wants, and that true interest is magic. She tells him he shines brightest when he's studying, then cuts him loose from every obligation, urging him to live on his own terms and chase his own path. Keisha can't stop thinking about her mother, noble, kind, and always stepping in to protect everyone's happiness. And she admits she spent her whole life trying to become just like her, believing every choice she's made has been her way of honoring the promise she swore to keep. Now she finally gets it. Everything she's done doesn't even come close to what it really means to be noble. Keisha cries out in total despair, realizing she caused chaos across the kingdom and risked innocent lives just because she was being selfish. And then it hits her. She even hurt the people closest to her, drowning in guilt over every reckless choice. Keisha spots Hermes sobbing, freezes in shock, and blurts out, "Why are you crying?" He tries to play it cool, but the instant it hits, it screams just how wrecked emotionally he really is. By the crushing pain and guilt that gnaw at her over every single thing that's happened. Hermes suddenly realizes tears are streaming down his face, and it hits him, pure heartbreak, even though he's not injured at all. Keisha just stares stunned, while he keeps his calm and admits to himself what he feels because he finally understands how deeply he cares for her. Hermes completely gets what Katie's going through. He feels her pain like it's his own. Then he smiles gently and says, "If I'm crying, it's because your suffering hurts me too, and even so." With a relieved smile, he finally gets what she's feeling. Then Hermes' face turns serious as he straight up admits Keisha is right, confessing that his obsession with magic came before everything, even her. Ever since they threw him out of the Flembreed family, his heart went dull, ripping the warmth he felt for Katia, and draining it from everyone else around him too. Hermes stares into his past and admits the truth. So he could survive, he wiped his own feelings clean, stopped caring about anything except magic, and cast off pain, sadness, and even joy. After all that time, he finally understood he hadn't just lost something, he'd lost the very thing that kept him alive, his heart. Keisha sits there in silence, the weight of his words crushing her chest. Hermes remembers how he stormed back to the royal capital hunting for what stole his heart. And once he tasted that longing again, he started closing in on anyone who still had real, burning emotions. The moment he saw Katia again, joy hit him like a wave after months of numbness. And then heartbreak crushed him when he noticed her pain. Now he finally gets it. She was the one who dragged his heart back to life. Emotions finally break through. Hermes opens his heart and blurts that he's not standing by Katia out of guilt or some debt, but because he genuinely wants her, plain and simple. His voice quivers as he confesses he can't stand the thought of a world where she's gone. And Katia's stunned, shaken to the core by the honest words that shatter the icy mask he's always worn. Tears glimmer in Keisha's eyes as she finally reveals. This is the first time Hermes has ever spoken his feelings out loud. She finally admits the truth. She's always felt insecure, like she was the only one getting tossed around by emotions, until she saw his sincerity with her own eyes. She twists to speak, reaching out her hand to him, yet the words choke in her throat and barely make it out. Hastened footsteps thunder through the corridor, and Hermes and Keisha snap their heads around, panic flaring as they hear the guards closing in. Voices snap the order to seize him right now. Hermes clocks the danger instantly and with an unshaking stare mutters that their time is over. Hermes clamps his hands on Keisha's shoulders, locks eyes with her, and tells her he can't fix her problems right now, so he goes straight for the truth. "Do you want to die?" Keisha goes silent, shocked. Hermes leans in, pressing her, demanding if she truly believes it's right to end her life like this. Then, with a trembling gaze, she finally whispers the answer. No. Keisha chokes out, tears streaming. Of course I don't want to die, because there's still so much she hasn't gotten to do yet. Hermes clasps her hand tight, wears a tiny smile, and tells her that as long as she feels it like this, that's all he needs. With a fierce look in his eyes, Hermes reaches for Keisha's hand and vows he'll stay by her side, no matter what. In the middle of the chaos and roaring flames, the guards scramble to get to them, while Hermes clamps her in a desperate, unbreakable grip. Then he unleashes his magic, and the two rocket into the night, soaring under the moonlit sky. Hermes scoops Keisha into his arms and shouts that he's about to go full throttle. She clamps onto him like her life depends on it as they blast across the sky, the prison vanishing behind them while the full moon's glow swallows the world beneath. Under the moon's glow, a soldier barrels into the throne room and shouts that Lady Keisha slipped out of prison thanks to her mage servant. The prince jolts in shock, but the man on the throne just sits there, silent and clearly seething at the news. Hermes rushes to explain himself to the prince, but the prince's fury slams him mid-sentence, accusing him of constantly wrecking everything, especially now that Keisha has been captured and seized by rage. The prince steps in himself, snapping that he can't keep pawning this off to anyone else anymore. Rage burns in his veins as the prince vows to personally hunt Keisha down, cursing the demons who wrecked the kingdom and swearing he'll prove who God really chose as the true mage. Then he snaps at Chris to follow him and fix the blunder of letting her slip away. The prince storms in to see Sarah right after her treatment, and fires off a worried question about her recovery. He tells Sarah that Kadia's magic attack left her gravely wounded, maybe she just can't recall it yet, while the prince presses the truth. Kadia betrayed her. Even if it sounds impossible, that determined spirit refuses to back down. Sarah begs to join him. She told him she needs to see with her own eyes how he's going to settle the dispute with Kadia. The prince flashes a satisfied smile when Sarah finally sees Katie's real face, then lets her ride with him and snaps orders to the soldiers to get ready, because at dawn, he'll personally hunt down those demons. Sorrow watched the prince stride off, whispered Hermes' name under his breath, and wore a deep, aching sadness as the memories hit. Under the cold moonlight, she can't stop wondering if she just made the right choice or a terrible mistake. During a lull deep in the forest, Katie remarks that Hermes seems born for camping. He grins and tells her that, back when he trained under his master, sleeping in wild, remote places was standard every time they went dungeon exploring. Hermes grabs Keisha's hands, begs her for patience, and vows that Jurgen will crush the doubts and prove her innocence. Seeing her slump, he tells her to rest and presses her case with everything he learned from his master. When your body finally crashes, your mind starts screaming with dark, negative thoughts. Hermes whips up a humble soup packed with veggies and dried meat, and when Keisha takes a bite, her face lights up as she praises the flavor. Stunned that he pulled off something this good with barely any ingredients, she broke into a smile, then she said, "You're amazing." Hermes asks Keisha if she can actually fall asleep despite all that discomfort, and Keisha grits out that she'll manage. While she tries to rest, Hermes stays on guard the whole time. Come sunrise, the prince's troops will start hunting them down. While Keisha drifts into sleep, Hermes vows to guard her until her innocence is proven, and it hits him how recklessly he's been acting right as he remembers what he did. Suddenly, he senses something off in the distance, and his instincts scream, so he goes on full alert. Keisha jolts awake, terrified, and screams for Hermes. Then he calmly steps in and tells her, "I'm here." I'm trying to calm her down while she's still trying to wrap her head around what just happened. Keisha sprints to Hermes in pure panic, blurting out that she can't see a single thing. Desperate, she blurts out whether something's wrong with her eyes, while Hermes scrambles to calm her down and figure out what's really going on. For the first time, Katie gets hit with full-on darkness, something rare outside the lit-up capital, and she panics hard, clinging to Hermes like her lifeline. He tries to soothe her while blasting a light spell, pushing the darkness back where it belongs. Hermes flicks a light spell and smashes the danger out of existence. Keisha gasped, then finally breathed easy because her eyes were totally fine. That darkness wasn't a curse at all, it was magic. Katie's face floods with heat, and for a split second she can't find a single word. With her face burning, Hermes throws out a joke to break the tension, but panic hits. She blurts for him to stop, swearing she'd rather die than keep embarrassing herself. The next morning, Hermes and Katie bolt to a nearby village to grab supplies again, only to run straight into the village chief once more, who spots them on sight and bursts out with shock, then joy like, "You're here." The village chief wraps up by thanking Hermes and Katie for saving them before, promising he'll get them anything they need. Katie shot back with deep gratitude, swore she'd repay the favor in her family's name, but the man won't back down. He swears it's them who are still drowning in debt. A little girl comes running up to Katie with pure joy, eyes lighting up because she knows her, the one who saved her before, so she blurts out her thanks and tugs Katie's hand to show her something. The village chief and Hermes are left stunned by what they're seeing as the little girl grabs Katie and Hermes and marches them straight to the construction site. Villagers bust their backs all day, digging, hauling, and rebuilding the whole area from the ground up. Katie's jaw drops as she watches the progress, and she scrambles to figure out what's going on. The chief leans in and tells them, "We're digging a moat and throwing up watchtowers. Monsters won't take this village." The little girl blurts out, all fired up, that ever since Katie rescued them, everyone's been teaming up like one big family. The man credits her with lighting the fire in everyone, so the villagers finally stepped up and took matters into their own hands, no longer waiting around for the nobles. The villagers shout that they're finally banded together to fight back and guard their home, something they never once thought they'd ever do. They thank Katie and she's like, "No, it was all you." But the moment she hears it, she gets choked up and tries to push it back because the guilt hits hard. She can't stop thinking the monsters really came after the village because of her. Katie watches the villagers grind day after day, and it hits her hard, claiming it's all her fault would be spitting on every ounce of their effort. In the heavy hush, she realizes they chose to fight on their own, and her words might crush the very courage they're finally daring to show. That little girl practically bursts with excitement. She says she's started learning magic, and insists there's a kind even asterisk she asterisk can use. Even without aristocrat blood, she swears she'll grind her way into becoming a great mage, fueled by Katie's example. Katie stares at the horizon, eyes distant, and whispers her mother's name like it's a secret that hurts. Then Hermes clocks something off about her, while the little girl and everyone else just sits in stunned silence, clueless about what's unfolding. Katie clings to her mother's words, be an exemplary aristocrat, protect the people, and suddenly it hits her. She's been shackled to that promise the entire time. She'd underestimated the villagers as powerless, until they proved they were stronger than she could have ever imagined. As the group waves goodbye to the villagers, they pour out heartfelt thanks for every bit of help they gave them. And Katie can't stop thinking about it, because what she went through there hit way deeper than she ever dreamed. Hermes leans in and demands the village chief puts everyone's safety first the second their pursuers show up. After their goodbye, he and Katie press on in dead silence, as the villagers watch and send them off with nothing but hope and good luck. As they head down the road together, Hermes clocks it. Katie's wearing calm on her face and confidence practically pours off her. After everything they survived, he can't ignore it. Something inside her has shifted, and it's for the better. Later that day, the prince rides into the village with his men flanking him. Cold as ice, he demands answers. Where are the purple-haired woman and the silver-haired man? The village chief starts to sweat as the prince draws near, remembering Hermes' words like they were burning into his mind. He shoots back hard, refusing to admit who he's talking about, even while the nobles' threats press in on him like a blade. The prince glares daggers at the village chief, rage boiling because it feels like a direct challenge. Yet the man stays stone-calm and tells him straight up that he has no idea about the people the prince is hunting. After that tense silence drags on, the prince finally chooses to step back. He snaps that it's enough, then orders them to move on. But before he walks away, he hurls a spell, and you can feel the threat hanging in the air like a blade. The prince stumbles on glowing magical traces, Hermes and Katie's unmistakable marks, proving they really slipped into the village. With a cold smile, he finally clocks the chief's lie, and vows this betrayal won't go unpunished. Cold as ice, the prince commands the village be set ablaze, with not a shred of guilt for the people trapped there. Hermes catches a whiff of smoke, and alarms explode in his heart. Staring out at the horizon, like something huge is about to break the sky open. They come to the gut-wrenching realization that the village is already engulfed in flames. Flames devour the village as the soldiers stand there, helpless, watching the fire rip through everything. The prince snaps an order, hunt for any survivors and don't let a single soul slip away. Katie lunges toward the burning village, frantic over the villagers, but Hermes slams into the way and stops her from getting anywhere near the flames. Suddenly, the village chief and everyone else burst back into view, alive, and they call out to her with pure, desperate relief. Katie and Hermes finally spot the villagers again, and the massive weight on their hearts lifts, because everyone's safe and alive. The chief tells it straight. Princess Door showed up before the first flames, then slipped out just before the whole place went up in smoke. The girl tells them that the blonde-only chance is what saved them, and Katie is left staring in shock. Right in the middle of the raging fire, a man throws himself in front of the girl. Then a mysterious blonde shows up out of nowhere. With her powerful spirit veil lineage magic, Theurgy snaps a protective barrier into place, shielding them and rescuing them from the roaring flames. The blonde girl screams for the villagers to run as she blasts open a path with her magic. She shields them from the flames, stitches up their wounds, and drags to safety the ones who never made it out. Yet just before anyone can thank her, she vanishes into thin air. Katie freezes, murmuring Sarah. The villagers wailed as their home, and every hard-built structure crumbled into nothing. Katie's face crumbles with guilt as she blames herself for everything that happened, convinced it all spiraled only because she got involved with them. Hermes rushes in, trying to shut her down and telling her straight up, that none of it is her fault. An arrogant-looking man strides in front of Katie and the villagers, taunting them as he smugly confirms she really did make it to the village. Cold as ice, he smirks and calls her a criminal, claiming she protects commoners only so everyone can see who's really paying for her secrets. The man snaps orders to seize every villager, convinced they helped the criminals slip away. Katie barrels in to protect them, screaming that they haven't done a single thing wrong. As Hermes yanks her by the arm, he tries to stop her before she goes any farther. Herm locks eyes with Cardia, determination blazing in his gaze, and demands she let him deal with the enemy by himself. Katia is so stunned she can barely get a word out. As the other man stares at him, total confusion hits him hard at that sudden declaration. Herm locks eyes with his brother and dares him. If he can win, he has to swear he'll never lay a hand on anyone, but if he loses, they get to capture everyone. Then he turns to Keisha and demands she call Lord Jurgen, get help for the evacuation and crush the flames, and even with worry clawing at her, Keisha nods and agrees. Inside a church, two brothers square off and Herm coldly fires back, demanding to know why he didn't stop Princess Dor's moves. Like it was your fault tragedy was allowed to happen. He throws it back at him, so many villagers lost everything, some could have died, and asks if he really feels nothing about it. Herm's brother erupts in a rage-fueled fury, lashing out blindly to protect Princess's store. Then he roars that he's the greatest man in the whole kingdom. And he makes it clear, anyone who won't obey him has it coming, plain and simple. He even boasts that he's the one true right hand, no one understands him like he does, while Herm just stands there watching, crushed by disappointment and sadness. The brother shrugs off everything, sneering that the villagers are just meaningless commoners, barely 100 souls, and he insists their deaths hold zero worth like they don't matter at all and that. But here's the truth, they were the living warning of what happens when you dare to defy Princess Esther. Herm, stunned and bleeding inside, can barely even find the words for the cruelty. Herm's brother, seething with rage, snaps that he better stop staring at him like he's some kind of superior. He tells Herm he's never changed, he's always stared down at him, and Herm stays dead serious, realizing talking won't fix anything anymore. With rage blazing in his eyes, Herm's brother steps into the duel and roars that he'll make him regret ever thinking he's anything, then declares he'll prove he's the real mage meant to reach the very top. The story snaps to a bright mansion under the blazing sun, then out of nowhere the words flash, 12 years ago. The memory snaps to a kid getting praised by his own father. Hermes just pulled off a mind-bending magic circle, and his dad beams, calling him a prodigy, while Hermes hides behind them, watching in quiet awe. In his mind, he relives it like a wound. He never got praise, not a single comforting hand patting his head. His father roars with rage and swings down, striking Hermes. When he compares him to his younger brother, he rubs it in saying Hermes pulled it off with zero effort, then humiliates him hard for not even coming close. Then he hurls a spellbook at him and snaps, master them before dawn, only then will they see you as the worthy heir of the Flimbard family. Drenched in exhaustion, Herm fights to make sense of the crazy magic circles sprawled across the floor, and even though his head feels like it's about to burst, he grits his teeth and keeps going. With sheer determination, he tells himself that if he can pull this off, his father will finally praise him one day. Outside, the night creeps forward in eerie silence, and he keeps grinding through his studies with zero breaks. Herm blasted through all the spells and made every one of them work. Yeah, you're excited, right? He sprints to his father, ready to show off everything he's accomplished and finally earn some real recognition. Then he bursts in grinning, calling out to him, and the moment he sees his father's face, his heart drops because he just knows he won't get the approval he's been chasing. Herm bursts with energy as he drills his levitation magic, lifting a teapot into the air and serving tea with razor-sharp precision. Then he sees it. His father just freezes in shock. Could his son really master such a delicate spell that fast? Hermes grins, soaking up every word of praise like it's pure victory. With his older brother watching in dead silence from the back, the comparison hits him like a weight on his chest again, while the father, absolutely blown away by Hermes' talent, bursts out that the Flimbard heir position will be his, even claiming his little son might someday outmatch his own power. Meanwhile, the older brother, standing in the doorway with his heart in a chokehold, turns away and slips out in silence, crushed by sadness and the brutal sting of being left behind. With frustration crawling over his face, the older brother rips through every magic circle he'd painstakingly drawn and lights them all on fire. Shocked, Hermes barrels in, scrambling to stop him, not even realizing why he's trying to interfere. In a panic, he pleads for him to stop, reminding him those were the spells he'd busted his ass to craft. But his brother won't answer, just lets the flames swallow everything in deadly, wordless silence. Rage burns in the older brother's chest as he shoves Hermes aside and snaps that it's all his fault that he's suffered. He screams that it's all his fault nothing in his life ever goes right, and that standing beside him only drags him down. Hermes freezes dead in place, tears pooling in his eyes. As the flames keep devouring the papers back there, the heat hammers home one brutal truth. Between them, the rupture is final. The older brother still remembers the instant he found out Hermes had no lineage magic, and cold truth hit him hard, because in his head, he knew it was his own lesson that crushed the idea that effort always pays off. When he finally learned the truth, he felt relieved, even smug. While that was happening, the younger Hermes sat alone and broken behind bars, starting the kind of grudge that had been simmering for years. Herm's brother explodes into a furious shout, laughing while he jabs a finger at him, telling Herm he fully deserves it. He never got why he made him feel so miserable, and he swore he'd make him taste that exact same pain back. He swears that if he keeps pushing, he'll finally crush his inferiority complex, but somewhere deep inside, he knows he's just fooling himself. The brothers stare each other down with exhausted, unflinching eyes, his older brother's anger barely contained as he spits, demanding to know how much longer Herm plans to keep tormenting his life. Without blinking, Herm tells him he's sick of it all too, and promises he'll finally end their endless fighting for good. Then both of them step into a duel that isn't just magic, it's every ounce of anger and heartbreak they've carried for years. Both brothers explode with raw magic. The older brother hurls his spell with a roar chanting 6 are the sacred bows, 1 is the magic bullet, and then snaps the trigger into place with the arm of a false god as power surges into his hand. Herm stays calm, yet his words hit like steel, so the world begins and this unshakable truth is carved here, with no line drawn between heaven and earth, all leading to one unbelievable miracle. Both of them unleash their spells at the exact same moment, blasting the whole place with searing light and raw power, ready to decide who wins this clash for good. They launch their spells at the exact same moment, and the blast hits so hard the whole place shakes, blowing apart a chunk of the building in a surge of pure magical energy. The boy grips his grimoire tight, then snaps to life with a mind-bending spell. He summoned a colossal arcane circle behind him, like reality itself was being branded. He jabs his hand forward and unleashes a storm of energy shots, yelling, "Magical bullet archer Miss Daltina." While he blasts away, a mage in the distance glares at him, annoyed that he's pulling out that spell again. The enemy blasts out a savage attack, roaring in rage that he can only stay calm for a brief moment. The boy stares down the attack like it's nothing, no flinch at all, because he knows his opponent is gearing up for a head-on clash. Then determination hardens his eyes, he slams his grimoire open and launches a full-force counterattack. The boy lunges aside just in time, and the explosion detonates, obliterating the ground at his heels as shock hits him hard. He snaps his eyes wide, staring at the sheer force of that attack he barely managed to dodge. Ahead of him, raw magic blasts slam down over and over, blasting debris into every direction. He realizes the enemy's hits are getting nastier by the second, and the other mage just cackles, so smug, like that power boost belongs to him. The young man stays calm as dust and rubble surround him, then declares with zero hesitation that he's gotten stronger too, and that he hasn't even tapped into everything he can do. The boy can feel a surge of monstrous magic pouring off his opponent, and he blurts out, shocked, "What are you hiding in your chest?" The other grin widens, he lifts his hand as power swirls around him, and he promises he'll finally expose the real truth behind his strength. The boy freezes in shock when his opponent whips out a staff covered in wings, and a serpent coiled along it. The mage grins like he owns the night, saying this divine artifact, caduceus, was personally handed to him by Princess Astor just for this battle. The boy suddenly clocks it, his rival isn't just using that artifact, he's using it to jack up his magic power sky high. With a confident grin, he hoists the staff and snaps that his power isn't just for show. Then the energy in the air explodes as he declares he'll reveal the real might of the magical bullet archer. With a wild, crazed stare, the mage grinds his power through the staff, sparks of fire swallowing him whole. Then he lifts that blazing weapon and screams the spell's name, Magical Bullet Archer Ms. Daltina. A blast of magical fire erupts forward, smashing through everything with terrifying force. The boy stares as fire-slick bullets streak straight for him, and when he feels their raw power, he knows he can't stop them, so he doesn't waste a single second. He tears straight through the flames, smashing everything that dares to stand in his way. The mage jeers at him, bragging that his caduceus staff supercharges every bullet with fire, turning them into something way more deadly. The boy studies the whole mess, clocks how brutal the artifact is, then grits his teeth, because he will find a way to bring him down. With a smug grin, the mage decides to slam the final button on this fight and end it for good, and unleashes a brutal storm of flames on his opponent. He barely even has time to react, scrambling to shield himself as the fire devours everything in its path, then laughing like a maniac. The mage roars that this is his real magic, and the magical bullet archer's raw power hits like a wrecking ball. Then he smirks, saying anyone just copying spells will never reach this level, while his rival gets blasted backward by the explosion. With a crazed grin on his face, the mage shrieks that he's better than anyone, power, talent, magic, everything. He sneers at his opponent, screaming, "You're a failure," fully sure he's already won. In a flashback, a woman chants a sacred ritual and places a sparkling grimoire into the child's hands, declaring the inheritance is sealed, and that for now the inscription is his to claim. Stunned by the book's insane power, the boy leans in, listening as she demands to know what he sees hiding inside it. The kid leans into the grimoire and freezes. Rows of twisting symbols and runes glare back, all of them totally out of his league. She gives him a bright nod, smiling, and tells him what he's seeing is the primordial inscription, an ancient magic he's just inherited. She tells him magic isn't some holy blessing, it's human-made, built on pure logic like a real science, and that primordial inscription is the proof. She drops this insane list, 69 kinds of magical languages and over 300 circle patterns, and tells him that if he masters them, he can cast any magic out there, even without a magical bloodline. She explains right there that aristocrats are born with hereditary magic, and it flows through them so naturally they don't even have to try. But she makes it crystal clear, his case isn't the same, and if he wants to reach that level, he'll have to grind harder than ever. Then she fixes him with a serious stare and demands to know what he really thinks about it. She leans in and asks the boy straight up what he feels after learning how brutal it is to use magic without any lineage behind him. He locks eyes on the glowing grimoire, breaks into a sincere smile, and admits that magic is just plain beautiful. The boy stared at the intricate grimoire, admitting he understood nothing yet, but his heart still screamed that magic was beautiful. He truly believed the people who made it poured in their blood, and with a stubborn, determined look, he vowed that one day he'd understand it all. The boy digs in day after day, hungry to uncover how and why magic was ever born. Then, as he scratches notes into his notebook, he vows to himself that someday he'll truly understand it and own it. Bit by bit, the boy crashes again and again. Frustration hits hard, but he keeps charging forward. Magic is his fire, learning is his goal, and nothing, not even the toughest setbacks, gets to knock him down. He slams into obstacle after obstacle, and every frustration hits harder. But he keeps charging ahead, sure. The training is brutal, yet his love for magic and that unstoppable hunger to get better fuel him, so he refuses to quit. Wounded yet unbroken, the boy steels himself and tells his brother he understands nothing at all. He lifts his grimoire high and declares that real magic isn't just about blasting spells. It's about the true essence and beauty of the craft, and his resolve to prove his strength burns brighter than ever. The boy ignites his technique and fires a resolve-fueled spell, summoning the magical bullet archer Ms. Daltina, and coats it in an ice attribute, blasting a towering wall of crystal barriers straight into his brother's raging flames. Crisp, icy energy swirls around him as he strides forward, and his grimoire flares bright in his grip. Then he looks at his stunned brother and says, cool as ice, "This lesson isn't done yet, because this fight is absolutely nowhere near over." His brother can't take his eyes off him as the boy fuses ice with water at the tributes. Standing on a field of crystals, his grimoire blazes, and the air around him locks up under a crushing blast of power. The brother erupts in rage and yells that his opponent copied his magic, but the boy stays icy calm. Realizing the magical bullet archer's enchantment supercharges his power, he locks in with razor-precise control and proves he's on another level. The boy leans in and explains that if you give magic an element, all it takes is one spark, then it hits a whole new level. It also leaves the user vulnerable to anything that doesn't match. He slams down the point that fire, take it from him, gets crushed by ice and water, and that's how he exposes the ugly weakness in his brother's power. The brother is completely thrown off, realizing he's at a serious disadvantage, so the boy quickly tells him to switch his attribute. But before he can even finish, the other bursts into a furious scream and blasts out yet another flame-drenched attack. The boy triggers an enhancement spell and rockets himself forward at breakneck speed. The earth splits under his feet, and his brother just stares, stunned beyond words, rooted in place. The boy rockets forward and slams a perfect, direct hit right on his brother. He tells them magic doesn't just live in spells. It can sink right into your body, supercharging your muscles and blasting your physical power to its peak. Rage surges through him as the brother lunges back in, screaming at him to stop pretending he knows it all. He blasts out a brutal shockwave. The ground rips with every hit, and the boy rockets away, dodging at breakneck speed. Still seething that he can't land a single hit, the brother snaps and screams with rage. Then, when he clocks the boy's insane speed, he decides to copy it, and fires off his own enhancement spell, only for it to explode in his face when the attempt totally backfires. His body can't take the magical pressure anymore, then his leg snaps in the middle of the strain. The boy stares at him coolly and calmly says, "I'm warning you, don't try that." Bloodied but unbreakable, the brother clutches the staff and fights to stand, his body screaming stop, but his will yelling not yet. The boy cuts in and says the move he's reaching for demands razor-precise, top-tier magical control, and he hasn't mastered that kind of power yet. His brother erupts in a desperate scream, yelling his name like he can't bear the thought of losing. The boy locks eyes with him, tightens his fist, and demands to know if he finally gets the gap between them. With pure determination, the boy unleashes his magic and forces his brother to learn the right way to use it. Channeling magic through his arms, he hurls a straight punch forward, and it slams in with brutal, earth-shaking force, demonstrating he had total control. The boy declares the fight is over as his brother crumples on the ground, blood and rage blazing on his lips. The brother slowly pulls himself up, eyes blazing as he accuses him again, like he's trying to snatch everything away once more. The brother bitterly remembers the exact moment his younger brother was born, and how jealousy and resentment instantly flipped his whole life upside down. He screams that from that moment on, he's crushed. Every last scrap of his father's attention, his recognition, and even his magical talent vanishes. The scene cuts in as he crumbles, screaming at his brother for snatching everything from him every single time. He finally admits he thought this special power, earned through blood, sweat, and grind, would let him beat his brother, but it still wasn't enough. The other brother just listens in silence, no rage in his face, only a heavy, quiet regret. The older brother rises, leans over him, and murmurs an apology straight from the heart. The younger brother, still sprawled on the ground and totally unprepared, goes completely wide-eyed, an instant of shock that chops off his words as the apology hits. The younger brother snaps that he'll never forgive what happened. But he admits that back when he was with the Marquis family, he practically acted like his own brother didn't even exist. Then it hits him, remembering all those moments and realizing just how badly he ignored him, that leaves the older brother completely blindsided. Back then, all he cared about was one thing, powering up his magic until it surged higher than ever. He didn't care about anything else, even though he and his brother shared the same home and were stuck in each other's orbit every day, and no matter that they were family, he never even bothered to learn a thing about him, not even because he wanted to know. He won't pretend he doesn't care, but he admits the past between them can't be erased and it hits hard. Still, after crossing paths with new people and taking their lessons to heart, he finally changes. He realizes you can't become a master of magic just by watching from the sidelines. You need the real thing, hands-on experience. Now he's finally choosing honesty, straight up admitting what he's feeling. The older brother drops his guard, swallows his pride, and sincerely apologizes, straight up admitting he's truly sorry for everything. His younger brother blows up, telling him, "Don't apologize right now, after all that happened, stop." The younger brother clenches his fists, sobbing and screaming that this apology is the cruelest thing he's ever heard. Because it only crushes him even harder, like the misery has nowhere left to go. The younger brother crumples to the ground, and the tears just pour out of him. He can't stop thinking that if he'd ever really talked to his brother back when they were still part of the Flembreed family, maybe everything would have turned out differently. He wonders if they could have ever had a normal sibling bond, but he realizes the damage is done, no going back. Then, when he turns to look over his shoulder, a new figure appears far off, silently watching everything play out. The older brother spots Princess Store staring down from above. He rises to his feet with pure determination and tells himself, "I'm not done yet, I still have to finish what I came for." Then he strides off, cutting his brother loose in the dust, and sets his face straight ahead, brimming with pure determination. He's done carrying those old grudges. Now he's going to smash through every conflict and finally settle it for good. A stunned girl grips her breath as several knights flank her outside a giant building. Then, right when someone comes rushing up, her eyes widen. She grips a handkerchief tight, clearly waiting on someone, or already lost in thoughts about the person who matters most. Cardia lets out a shaky breath of relief when she sees him safe, then he quickly reassures her, and everyone else, that Chris is down for good and won't be fighting again. Everyone finally exhales, like the danger just got crushed and the worst is behind them. He grills Keisha about the village, and she tells him the soldiers showed up right after they split, and by then most of the fires were already put out. The villagers are safe, at least for now, and the tension still crackles in the air. Keisha looks like she can finally breathe, yet her relief turns into pure emotion as she watches everyone they've managed to help. Keisha, visibly rattled, blurts out that a noble's mansion sits nearby, right where the villagers can huddle for safety. She's already fired off a messenger and the fallout hits everyone hard, but it crushes her the most. While the world reels, the main character slips in beside Keisha, coaxing comfort as she fights back tears. They slip away from the broken village ruins and settle down side by side, quiet at last. Katia admits she's been trembling ever since she watched the village burn, and she's terrified everyone will think she's pathetic. Keisha can't shake what happened. She blames herself hard, convinced that so many people nearly died because of her, and she can't understand why she feels so weak when the villagers were saved thanks to Sarah. Guilt crashes down on her as she doubts her own strength, and Katia finally admits she's always dreamed of becoming just like her mother. Yet the harder she pushes, the clearer it becomes, she can't. Her mom's constant push to become an amazing aristocrat now feels like a curse, and Keisha can't stop worrying that if she keeps forcing herself like this. He tells Katie, keep trusting your heart, because in the end you're going to step up and present what your mother wanted. Telling her that the same stubborn determination she's always carried is still alive and kicking, never shattered. He's telling her to stay locked in on who she is, don't quit now, keep chasing those dreams like she always has. His master hands him a deadly strong magic called Hermes, but right away the warning hits, don't use it unless there's no other choice. This magic is chained to his master's real identity, so if he dares to cast it, the spell will unmask who she truly is. From here on out, he's stuck spending time in the royal capital, but he's warned to use that spell only when things go truly, brutally desperate. He fires up the magic, shouts the spell, and the instant he chants it, a blinding burst of light explodes out. And he summons the magic, forcing it to break free. Then Kadia, staring from the farthest edge of the world, watches the spell explode into the sky in pure awe. Magic feathers whirl through the air as he finishes the spell, and he shouts the technique, Great Seamless Eagle Praise Velger. The energy surges and the full power finally kicks in. Keisha stares in stunned silence as the magic finally reveals its real form. Giant, awe-inspiring wings erupt around him, and she realizes it's a brutal bloodline magic. Then he drops the truth. It came straight from his master, Rose, the Sky Witch. And just like that, they launch into the clouds together, the magic lifting them higher with every heartbeat. He breaks it down. Rose aka Roselia Kirsch von Justia isn't just his master, she's a legend, a third princess from the old generation and the deadliest triple aptitude mage ever seen. She was so extraordinary the capital banished her, but for him, she's the one mage he respects more than anyone on earth. Up in the clouds with Kadia, he keeps soaring, and suddenly his master's lessons come crashing back into his mind, one memory at a time. During his training, one of the biggest questions she threw at him, what does magic mean to you? Hit hard and stayed with him, reshaping the way he saw magic forever. At first, he couldn't even say what magic meant to him, so he wrestled with it for ages until the answer finally snapped into place. Magic is a story. Kadia's jaw drops at that view and they keep soaring together into the sunset. He explains that every single magic spell is born from a person's story and a burning wish. So when you rebuild it using the primordial inscription, you finally see what it was made for and what the creator was chasing. And by the end, it hits you hard. All magic boils down to feelings and desire, that's what magic really is. He grabs Keisha and fires a question at her. What does she really think the original wish behind the great seamless eagle magic was? Keisha figures it had to be for quick movement and real combat, because Rose, the Sky Witch, used it to fly up and smash wave after wave of enemies. She grapples with what she really meant when she crafted that brutal spell, and he calmly breaks it down. Turns out the magic's true wish is way simpler than she thought. I want to soar through the sky, that pure burning passion drives me. And when he studied the magic, he could suddenly feel the creator's emotions crystal clear. He tells Keisha he gets exactly how brutal it is to chase ideals you'll never touch, and somehow he links her pain to the very same dream that burned inside him. He admits that chasing a dream you can't reach feels like pure torture, then fires up Kadia anyway, telling her that once she crushes every obstacle, her wish will finally come true. The view's going to blow your mind, and he's desperate to catch the instant she hits her goal, praying she'll let him stand there to witness every word of her story. He tells Keisha that ever since the day she pushed him inside that cell, he's been crushing hard on the way she carries herself. When Kadia recalls that moment, her heart tugs hard and she can't stop wondering, will she ever forge something as breathtaking as that memory? He leans in and tells Keisha she's got this. Remember, she's not alone because he's right there beside her and She breaks into a smile, and for a moment everything feels safe, like hope is glowing right there between them as they step into the future side by side. Herm suddenly blurts out Keisha's name, and it catches her completely off guard. He tells her, I've gotta tell you something huge, this can't wait. She couldn't stop staring at the stunning scenery, and then it hits him, something huge is stirring in his chest. Herm can't stop thinking about the real worth of Keisha's magic, like it's a salvation clawing its way out of hell. Chris is about to tear the veil off what he truly thinks real value is, something way deeper than just power, and he's down, wounded, bleeding. He's left wondering how he can't beat Herm when they both swing the same magic. So he rips his brain trying to figure out what makes Herm different and what Chris is missing. Chris stares in disbelief as Herm strides off, stunned and thinking, what on earth has he been doing for the last 5 years to get this strong? Meanwhile, Princess Door storms in, and everyone's jaw drops at the shock of his arrival. Princess Door looms over Chris and snaps that he lost in the most pathetic way possible, while someone scrambles to patch up Chris's wound. Aster calls it right there, Chris is all talk, no proof, and once his wounds get treated, Prince Aster snaps, get out, warning him to never show his face again. If Chris ever dares to come back, Astor will scorch him to ashes with his flames. No warning, no mercy, no second chance. Chris watches Aster and the others vanish with the soldiers, leaving a whole bunch behind, just him staring at the mess they're walking away from. He goes silent, turns his back, and trudges off alone through the forest, looking crushed and utterly alone. Chris keeps forging ahead alone through the forest, and the sun rips through the treetops, while down the path a horse-drawn wagon sits waiting, ready to whisk him away. Chris tells Keisha he'll bark orders at the soldiers to drag everyone out of the village, where the villagers are huddled together, packed in fear. With nerves on full blast, Chris quietly clocks it. Everyone around them looks just as worried as they feel. Chris gets hit with a shock when his brother suddenly shows up out of nowhere and shouts his name. His brother insists he didn't come to brawl, and he fights to keep the peace, claiming there's only one thing he's here to talk about. The two brothers stare each other down in silence. Then Chris's brother leans in and says there's one question he has to ask, no matter what. Chris, still reeling from his loss, grabs his brother and blurts out the one question he can't stop thinking about. Even with the same bloodline magic, how did he end up losing? He can't stop replaying it in his head. Then his face hardens and he demands, "So what exactly has your brother been up to for the past 5 years?" He tells him, "I never stopped, just kept learning and hammering my magic training non-stop." And Chris isn't satisfied, so he pushes even harder. He can't shake the thought, was that all, or was there something special that helped his brother unleash magic this brutal? Then he leans in and asks what bloodline magic is made of. Hermes throws the whole explanation out the window and decides to show it all instead of talking about it. And he pulls out a magic book, an exact copy of the one he always uses. Chris snaps to attention, totally baffled, because it looks like Hermes is about to hand his magic to someone else, just like that. Hermes makes it crystal clear. The primordial inscription isn't secret, it's a tool anyone can use. And even Chris gets to use it. Chris is told to crank up his magic, and the exact spots where the magic bullet archer should fire are laid out. Chris is stunned for a second, then he snaps into action and follows Hermes' directions, while Hermes probes him, "Can you see anything now?" After blasting his magic to the world. Chris's eyes go wide as he stares at the floating inscription, and the moment he realizes what he's seeing, he's completely rattled. Mysterious symbols and glowing magic circles explode into view and slam shut his world, blocking everything he can see. Chris jerks with pain and pure shock, yanking his hands to his face, while Hermes looms nearby, still clutching the book, staring straight at Chris's intense reaction. Chris reels with dizzy confusion after reading everything, and it finally clicks. What he saw wasn't simple at all, it was a twisted, complicated mess. An unreadable spell of symbols and formulas crawled through countless stacked circles, layered like a coded nightmare. Hermes tells him that's all I ever see, and if Chris really tried to piece it together, his head would blow wide open. Hermes tells Chris that the magic he was born with, and the one he's relied on his whole life, is actually powered by a brutally complex structure. And Chris is floored because he never once pictured it would be that intricate. Hermes tells him, even with all that, you're still using your magic the natural way. And Chris just can't believe it. Because what everyone treats like simple God-given power is actually way more detailed and technical than he ever imagined. Chris snaps and blows his top, insisting it's a flat-out lie that anyone can use it. He claims you could grind forever and still never reach that level, then scoffs that it's absurd you'd have to pour so much effort just to wield lineage magic. Hermes stays ice calm and insists he didn't do anything special. He just grinds at it day after day for 5 whole years, repeats that anyone can pull it off if they're willing to put in the time, but yeah, for him it took 5 years. Chris, fuming, snaps that it was Hermes who made all his work feel pointless. And now he's seething, asking if Hermes really thinks anyone else can pull off what he did. Hermes calmer said he went through the exact same gut punch when he learned he wasn't born with lineage magic. And the worst part was how it made him feel like every ounce of effort he'd poured in had been for nothing. Chris can't stop thinking about it. Hermes never quit on magic, not even after everything tried to crush it. He can't help but wonder why Hermes went so insanely far for magic. Then Hermes just grins and answers. Because he's completely obsessed with magic. Chris snaps to the truth, eyes wide with shock, and his mind starts racing. I finally get it, Hermes is hiding something, and it's the one thing I don't have. Suddenly someone comes sprinting in and yells, "Big brother." A little girl comes sprinting in, beaming, and blurts, "Big brother's been looking for you, so I finally found you." She clocks the conversation and asks if it's something serious, and Hermes just grins and tells her it's nothing at all. Then he says he'll go with her right away. Then he strides off with her, leaving Chris sitting there on the ground, silently watching as they disappear, while the girl clings close to Hermes' side, proving they're true siblings. Chris slumps on the grass alone, defeated and stuck in his own head, whispering to himself that he's done. Because this time he didn't just lose, he got beaten straight up, no excuses. He feels like he got wiped clean, like there's nothing left to prove what this loss did to him, and the panels slam his emptiness in your face, making the crushing weight of losing to Hermes hit even harder. Chris stumbles onto the magic book Hermes left behind, and for a second pure shock hits him like lightning. Chris starts spiraling over Hermes, and it feels like the god's voice is echoing inside his skull. Asterisk, try it if you think you can asterisk. So he wonders if Hermes left the book there on purpose, basically daring him to keep pushing ahead. Chris's eyes blaze after flipping through the book and he bursts out, "I'll do it, no matter how many years it takes." When he realizes this is something anyone can pull off, he lights a fire under himself and swears, "I can do it too." Then he charges ahead, never stopping, still bursting with hope, still soaked in energy. The whole village is scrambling, loading up into horse-drawn wagons as they prepare to vanish down the road. Katie stood a little apart, waving goodbye with a soft, warm smile, while the little girl beamed back and waved like she meant it. And with the whole group heading out, Katie stays put in stunned silence, quietly watching them disappear. Katie's eyes harden as she faces Herm and declares she's done running. She's done watching tragedy repeat itself. No way she's letting this happen again, and Katie's about to crush her fight with Prince Aster for good. Even though she knows more harm could come, she's determined to keep moving anyway. Herm nods along and says it's the prince who knows what schemes he'll pull. Then she adds, and Sarah's right there with him. Herm leans in and tells Katie, "You're not doing this alone. If you choose this, I'll fight beside you all the way." Katie's smile blooms instantly, like she finally feels fully backed. The soldiers swear Prince Astor is lurking in the nearby abandoned castle. Katie clenches her fists and says it's time to move. Then he tells Herm this is the time to prove their justice. Both of them lock eyes, look dead set, and get ready to rush out. A soldier rushes up to Prince's store and blurts out that Katie and her servant are coming straight for the castle. The prince leans in, clearly intrigued and a little amused, while the girl beside him gasps when she hears that Katie is on her way. The prince hears the criminals are marching right to the castle themselves, so a soldier blurts, "Should we seize them?" But the prince shakes his head and says there's no need. Instead, he tells them to roll out the red carpet for Katie and her crew, and he sounds so confident you can practically feel the swagger in the air. Katie and her companion charge ahead with grim faces, and Katie insists they won't stop until every last person finally realizes who truly stands for justice. Katie and her companion strode through the castle halls, stunned that they got inside so easily. She's convinced the prince has to trust his own strength, because she's never seen him doubt he'll win, so Katie straight up tells him she'll take his challenge. Katie and her friends step into the courtyard, and the place feels like it's holding its. Prince Aster and his companion are on standby, waiting for them to finally show up. Astor bursts in like, "You're finally here, yeah, you're finally here," and the showdown is about to kick off right now. Katie spots Sarah and practically beams, saying she's so relieved to see her fine, only for Sarah to snap her head up shocked and call out to her. The prince steps in, demands to know if Katie's finally ready to confess her crimes. After all, she showed up on her own, and Katie answers without hesitation, "Absolutely not." Katie lunges forward and challenges Aster head-on, saying she didn't come for anything else, she came to face him. He blurted it out, shocked she'd really try to take him on by herself. Then he sneered that she was just some defective girl. Katie tells Aster she's changed since the last time he knew her, then dares him to settle it face-to-face, fair and square. Aster bursts out laughing at her, calling her arrogant while mocking how she can't even control her own magic. Still, he squares up, takes her challenge head-on, and asks her back, confidence blazing in his chest. He vows to torch both Katie's sins and her pride down to ash, then dares her to step up and meet him in battle. Katie strides off with pure determination. As someone whispers her name, sounding genuinely worried, Astor snaps orders to his guards to take care of Hermes. While Katie laces up to leave, Hermes wishes her luck, remembers his own earlier warning, and promises he'll pray she crushes the fight. Katie and Aster stride into the castle, while Hermes gets pinned down outside by the soldiers. Hermes leans in and asks Sarah if she fight him alongside Astor's allies. Sarah hesitates, eyes flicking with pure uncertainty, and then the soldiers surge forward, ordering her to stay back like she's not the target, saying they've got this and that they're enough to take down Hermes. Hermes cuts the soldiers off cold and snaps that he wasn't talking to them at all. Sarah softly calls his name and he just. And ever since then, he's been wrestling with his real feelings nonstop. Hermes still remembers how he used to dread Prince Aster, because one wrong move could have spelled disaster for him, his family, and every friend he cared about. Now that he spots the prince seated on the throne, Hermes can't stop thinking about how Kadia's magic attack this time left him badly wounded. Sarah hears the prince snap that Kadia betrayed her, and it hits like a punch. But Sarah won't buy it for a second, convinced Kadia is absolutely incapable of something like that. Sarah snaps she's done hurting the people she loves, and she's done swallowing the prince's lies. So she decides right then to break free and stop being his accomplice. Sarah sprinted straight toward the burning village, lungs burning and heart pounding as the fire roared closer. She spots the terrified villagers and suddenly locks eyes with the prince, her legs trembling out of pure terror. until she finally understands she can't keep hiding in fear anymore. And she forces herself to move, even while fear claws at her. Sarah wrestles with the idea of fighting with pure honesty, then pours her real emotions straight into her magic. She can't help but wonder, if she catches a glimpse of their magic, will it finally unlock who they really are? Sarah wonders if she can actually pull it off, then asks the other person what kind of magic they've got, remembering how they once talked about how powerful feelings can be. The other person leans in and says their magic is all about healing wounds and shielding everyone from harm. Surrounded by soldiers, Sarah locks eyes with Hermes and promises she'll prove she can take every single one of his attacks and still stand. Hermes snatches up the challenge and declares, "Fine, I'll be your opponent." Hermes barrels forward, yelling at the top of his lungs that he's coming for them. But the knights slam into his way and tell him flat out, no way in. Hermes whips around, dodges every strike, and crashes into the knights with furious attacks. But then Paulina steps in, she heals them with magic. Stunned, the knights bounce back fast and right away they clock her power and skill. The knights treat Paulina like a goddess in battle. She keeps her whole team upright as long as her magic lasts, turning them nearly invincible. Hermes clocks the threat, tightens his focus, and decides he's done playing, he's going all in. Hermes clenches his magic, fires up the 6 sacred bows, and unleashes a brutal, bone-rattling attack. Paulina slams into it with her own defensive magic, trying to shut it down before it breaks through. As the knights stare in shock at the brutal force of the attack, Hermes unleashes a deadly, lightning-fast strike, and Paulina instantly spots the one flaw in it. She tells the knights to stay icy calm, eyes locked on the shot, ready to swerve out of its path. Hermes clocks how fast they get his magic and blurts out in shock at how quickly they crack the whole thing. The knights surged in as one, trapped Hermes in a deadly corner, and shattered his magical defense. Paulina realizes they're pressuring him, and she's ready to believe that if they keep hitting, they'll finally break him. But Hermes stays icy calm, and not a shred of worry shows on his face. Hermes switches up his fighting style on the spot, and Paulina and the knights are left reeling in sheer shock. Paulina can't react fast enough as he slashes in with sharper, quicker movements. And he finally realizes that just weeks ago, Hermes' attacks were nothing but clean and simple. Now he's cranked it up with a far more advanced technique. Hermes proves his real power. He levels up mid-fight, pushing his body harder and honing his technique while the battle rages on. Even though they kicked him out of the capital for having no bloodline magic, everyone can't stop staring now, because the power he carries is straight-up unbelievable. The crowd gasps when Kadia's useless servant steps up, because he's shockingly strong, and the bloodline magic heirs can't believe Hermes pulled off that kind of power through sheer hard work alone. They're straight-up stunned, watching him throw down and sling magic around with fearless freedom and pure joy. Sarah can't help it, envy burns in her chest. Hermes isn't just skilled, he's got something rarer than talent, something so important that almost no one could ever beat. In the end, the knights throw up their arms and confess they're utterly beaten, right in front of him. Kadia lunges forward and unleashes a torrent of magic, blasting out an insane amount of power. But she's convinced this isn't her peak, she still has more gas left in the tank. Aster keeps his poker face on, watching her give it her all like he's already sure he'll win. Aster nods and admits Kadia's getting stronger, then tells her straight up, those attacks won't be enough to bring him down. Bored to the bone and sick of it, he decides to cut the fight short. Aster explodes forward with a terrifying attack that leaves nothing standing. That rips through the castle walls. He calmly strides off through the rubble, never once glancing back. Astor stares at the castle's shattered remains, and disappointment hits him hard. He figured this fight would be way more epic than that. But in the end, he doesn't just lose. He rips into his opponent, calling him a failure right up to the last second. Keisha strides out of the smoke completely unscathed, and Aster's jaw drops in shock. He couldn't believe she tanked his flames. He figured the defective girl would get scorched, not walk out unhurt. Kadia stands her ground, clenches her resolve, and screams that the fight isn't done yet. This is only the beginning. The enemy sneers that she shouldn't get a big head just because she slipped past his first strike. Then he hurls a crushing attack at her. Kasha clenches her ground at the front, bracing for the impact. Soldiers crumple around her, but she refuses to break. He's convinced this won't be enough to break her. And then the antagonist roars that everyone here will watch as he unleashes the punishment he's about to deliver. Meanwhile, an ally sees it all and screams in panic for Katie. The boy clings to Hermes' words in his mind, then finally understands what Keisha's magic is worth. It's called the Hell of Salvation, and when Kadia hears that name, her surprise hits like a punch. As he finally sinks his teeth into what that power truly means, the boy leans in and spills the truth about Keisha's magic, its real, terrifying power. Magic isn't only about summoning and commanding souls to throw spells. It's about talking to the dead, and Keisha just realized she's been using her power completely wrong this whole time. Reeling from the truth behind the power's real origin, the boy realizes it, Keisha wasn't going all out. She'd only been unleashing a tiny fraction of her magic, and the full effect is way more dangerous. He tells her to dig back into the roots of her power and start listening to the soul she summons. Katia is stunned and blurts out what she's supposed to do now, and the boy tells her, talk to the souls as equals, feel what they feel, and fight side by side with them not. Keisha refuses to see them as just pawns under her thumb, and yet doubt gnaws at her. What if she fails? What if the souls won't answer? Then he steps in, calm and confident, and tells her straight up, he knows she'll make it. The boy insists he trusts Katia's instincts, because if she truly wants to speak with the souls, she'll find a way to reach their hearts. He points out that the word Jews, meaning salvation, traces back to some faraway land where everyone finally finds peace, and he swears the person who forged this magic had to be unbelievably kind. The boy explains that this magic shelters the wandering dead, which is exactly why it's called that, and Keisha can't stop thinking about what happens to those souls, where they might finally be saved. Then the boy adds that the spell's inscription is what keeps that meaning alive. Katia steels herself, thrusts her hands forward, and blasts her magic to life, shouting the spell's name, Underworld of Salvation ***. Keisha rips open a colossal surge of magic and screams for the souls to come to her aid. She declares she'll beat the prince and prove her justice, then begs the souls to hand over their strength right now, because this moment decides everything. Katie's plea hits the air, and the souls answer right back. She nodded and took the promise. He'd stand with her and he'd fight right beside her no matter what. Keisha's eyes widen as it finally clicks. She actually connected with them, and the shock hits like a punch, followed by pure emotion. Katia raises her hand, and the souls she summons surge forward like a storm, smashing into the enemy on her command. The prince freezes in shock when he realizes how brutally powerful the souls fighting right beside her are. The prince scrambles to fend off their assaults, but the sheer power driving them just sparks his frustration into full-blown fury. He screams that they're insolent, panicking as he realizes he's out of options, right before Katia's power in the spirits crashes down. The prince nods and admits Katia's magic hits hard, but then he smugly insists it still won't be enough to beat him. He casts a resurrection spell and brings his allies back to life, totally stunning Katia. Because the moment she sees the souls, she realizes they're the same ones she summoned with her own magic. Katia's soul sentinels surge to shield her, then charge back into the fight. Keisha finally gets it. She never truly reached for the dead, yet they felt her heart anyway, and now they're fighting tooth and nail to protect her. Kanshia wipes away tears and pours out her gratitude to the souls for saving her. The others stare in shock, blurting out how unreal her new power is. A girl clocks that the souls are acting totally innocent, almost like they're just little kids. The boy tells him that since they struck a chord with Katia's heart, only the pure, harmless side of those souls got pulled out, while every trace of malice got left behind. He claims they're not the full personalities of these people, just the clean, pure slivers of them. So the souls slipped into that innocent shape, and even he admits he's not totally sure how the whole thing actually works. Rage sparks in the prince's chest as the souls keep striking again and again, and he finally understands they're not going to stop. One of the characters points out that sure, the prince's magic is terrifyingly strong, but it still won't be enough to take down Keisha in the way she is right now. Keisha strikes from range, snapping her angles into place so the prince can't even close the distance, and then the troop's souls in formation flip the fight so hard it turns in her favor. Meanwhile, the prince can only fling spells, but no matter what he does, he can't shrink the distance between them. The crew figures it out. The prince always smashes his way through with raw power, his talent, and killer magic, but he's never run into someone who's truly on his level. That's why he's stuck without any strategy, and when challenges slam in, he never pushes through. They say people who have coasted on victory since day one crumble the moment real disadvantage finally hits. And right now, with the prince surrounded by those souls, he feels that weakness claw at him for the very first time. The prince gets crushed under the weight of the souls Keisha summons, and he lets out a desperate scream, shouting her name like his life depends on it. Keisha stands there jaw dropped, staring at the chaos her brand new power just unleashed. The prince finally notices it. His flames are losing power, and that terrifying truth hits him hard. Another character blurts out that his magical energy is totally gone. So yeah, it's exactly what anyone would have expected after he burned through so much magic back to back. With the prince drained and magic gone, Katia surged forward and blasted a clean, deadly hit with the soul's power. Now he can't even guard himself, totally smashed as the fight turns against him.